And hello to everybody on YouTube that are watching and everybody that's in YouTube chat. Another night. And it is Thursday evening, August 10th, 2017. And tonight, we better see some activity. Now, there is a lot of clouds in the area. I'm hoping they'll dissipate as the evening progresses. Also, tomorrow's forecast is horrific. Thunderstorms all night. So it looks like I'm going to miss the peak. But there's always Saturday night into Sunday. And Saturday night into Sunday is another great night. So depending on where you go, they say, oh, the morning of the 12th, the morning of the 12th and 13th. Depending on what site you visit and who you talk to and what you read, they're saying Saturday and Sunday morning. And, of course, tonight, you should see a tick up in activity. I have to thank Patrice Sheridan for the wonderful pre-record we did today, which will air tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on KGRAradio.com. That's just a spoiler alert. It is a pre-record. I'm not going to say what I mentioned. But I will say, chat, you got one heck of a thank you from me. And I did mention a few names. I wish I could have said more, but it would have been kind of ridiculous if I went on a radio show as a guest and started saying every name that comes in chat. But I want to say, you will hear that tomorrow if I'm streaming. If not, you're going to hear it anyway down the line when I replay it. But I want to thank everybody in YouTube chat. For your support and always being there. And like I said, you'll hear, I don't want to give it away, you'll hear what I have to say tomorrow night if I go live, if the weather cooperates. I also did talk about Mark D'Antonio, P&K Space Imaging, a lot of the activity that goes on in the Hudson Valley. And toward the end, she surprised me by asking me about Nuclear Lake. And yes, there is a segment where we discuss Nuclear Lake. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give it away here, but I'm sure Al and Brian, Cindy, they'll all be happy about what I discussed. and Heidi. And it really went off well. And I was honest. I'm honest how I feel about the state of ufology, what goes on in social media as far as ufology. She kind of touched on a lot of different subjects. Then I wake up, my pool doesn't work, the pump. I had to change outlets, breakers. That was a nightmare. Fortunately, I got my pool up and running. Then I break the clip that holds my skimmer on my pump to the pump as I'm putting it all back together, so I had to go run and buy another clip. On top of that crazy, insane day, Amazon made a little error and sent me one item instead of two items that I was expecting. So that was something else I had to work through today and fix. And finally, I did go to the doctor about my leg. And I'm sure those that are followers here, the steady individuals that come and listen to the stream, know that I had MRIs done on my femur, my upper leg area where there was a mass, and I had MRIs done, and I was really nervous about this. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor pulls me in and tells me, okay, we looked this over. I had other doctors looking at this. He says, well, he kind of was like confused. I really thought this was a tumor, some type of fatty tissue tumor. It's non-cancerous, but a tumor anyway. So it turns out I have no mass at all. And I'm saying to myself, okay, what the heck is going on with my leg? Now, about a month and a half ago, while I was feeding my birds, I slipped in the mud and I felt a pop in my leg. And they told me, after they went over my leg, I'll drink to my leg. They told me I have a very bad torn muscle in my leg, and it healed up that way, and the mass is how the muscle healed. So now I have to go to an orthopedic surgeon to have an orthopedic surgeon look at it and tell me what needs to be done. Now, he said it's good news. You don't have a tumor, which I was totally relieved, because I would rather have a torn muscle than to have, obviously, the worst case scenario would be a tumor and surgery and the whole 9 yards. Now, he did tell me, Bill, to be honest, unless you're a superstar, you're an athlete, you play in the NFL, or you play some sports or something, they're probably not going to do surgery on it because it healed this way. Yeah, it healed abnormally, but it's not causing you pain. There's no indication of the muscle having any kind of side effects or ill effects, because that's the way it healed. Now, I'm still going to go to the orthopedic surgeon and have them look at it, and if that can be fixed, because, I mean, it's really not noticeable, only when the leg is in a certain position where you can see it. But I have to say, I am really relieved that it wasn't a tumor, and it is simply a torn muscle that healed abnormally. So I'm really, really happy and relieved, and I want to thank everybody for their kind thoughts and prayers while I undergo this. And I know how difficult it is for people that do have these instances where they're suffering from cancer and tumors, and I'll be honest, I was really scared. It doesn't run in my family, so I kind of had a feeling it was when I fell and I felt that pop in my leg, because I did feel it. You see, I'm the kind of individual that never stays still, and Al and Chat can tell you that. People can tell you that You can't hold me down. I never stay still. I'm always doing something. And I sometimes think that I'm still in my early 20s. And the mind tells you that, but the body definitely reacts differently. And I was falling in the mud, and I tried to brace myself with my hands and my legs, and that's when one of my legs went stiff straight up, and I felt that pop. So I kind of figured it was related, and I did mention, speak about this. If you go back in time, and I did mention that I slipped and I felt the pop and the whole 9 yards. But still, when you have a mass, and you may not realize it, and you look at it, and then you see it, I mean, it may take a little bit to put two and two together at times. And better to be safe than sorry, because preventive care is essential. It is so important to do proper test and diagnosis on something before it evolves into something more serious. And I have a heart condition. I have 2 stents. That's something I'm constantly on top of. And it's just, you really need to do the proper care. And I would suggest for anyone with colon or prostate to definitely have yourself checked out at the age of 50 or higher. Because again, early detection can save your life. So, and I also want to wish well to all those that may be suffering from any kind of ailments, going through tough, difficult times, like our friend Dave Schock, who had that horrible fall and is suffering from severe migraines. It's really difficult. And it's important to have a support system, whether it's your family, your friends, just to give you that. Some people don't have that, and it's really hard to deal with in a situation when you're alone. And fortunately, I have my extended family right here in YouTube chat. So I want to thank again everybody in YouTube chat for your support and your well wishes, prayers, etc. Anyway, the sky is starting to clear up a little bit. So it's starting to look a little bit more optimistic about tonight. I was able to get a little bit of rest. Today was absolutely insanity. I got very little sleep. I haven't stopped all day. And I'm feeling it right now. But I did have a little nap for maybe an hour and a half. So I literally just woke up because I knew it was cloudy earlier. And I said, you know what, let me go outside and take a look. Maybe it cleared up, and it's somewhat clearing up. So we'll go as long as we can regarding the skies, and hopefully it stays somewhat clear where we can see any kind of activity. So we're going to go as long as we possibly can. Tomorrow night, again, the weather doesn't look good at all. I'm going to be producing, so if I do go live, you'll hear shows live. Tomorrow night, Walter Bosley will be Don Ecker's guest, and a little bit of his information, which I'm going to go to right now, his websites. It's empireofthewheel.blogspot.com. Walter Bosley. So you can go check out his website. He will be the guest tomorrow. Also, he's got a site with his books, which is lulu.com/spotlight/Lost Continent Lib, which is short for library. So again, it's lulu.com/spotlight/Lost Continent Lib. And he has a really interesting book there, among others. But one caught my eye, and it's about his father. It's called Shimmering Light. And just to give a quick little synopsis on it, it says here, the author presents his father's bizarre story involving Roswell and a 1958 UFO retrieval operation in Arizona, and the curious role Operation Paperclip and the subsequent CIA MK Ultra mind control program may have played behind the scenes. So I'm sure that's something that's going to be discussed tomorrow night. Again, that's Dark Matters Radio with host Don Ecker and guest Walter Bosley. At 10 p.m. Eastern Time, QP Science Project, Jill is going to have on Diane, where is she? I got to look her name up. Diane Brandon for the first 2 hours. For the first hour and a half. Followed by Michael Lennox and his astrology predictions. Tomorrow, I am using we're going to be using my Skype number, and we're going to take callers to the QP Science Project for the last half hour with Diane Brandon. So we're going to open the lines tomorrow, and I will take callers for Jill Hansen's show tomorrow night. This is something new. And like I need more on my plate, I'm going to do it anyway, because I really want to get the people that are listening in the chat involved in the show, in all the shows that I produce. So I'm making that available. So that's going to start tomorrow night. So again, it's going to be 90 minutes with Diane Brandon. Final half hour will be open lines to talk to Diane, ask her some questions, and then followed by a half hour with Michael Lennox. Some weird stuff going on. Of course, open lines on Saturday with Don Ecker and Richard Saraday. Now, Michael Melton, host of the Starborn Connection, contacted me because Ben Davis, who was a guest on their show, and also I had him on my Skywatch. He's supposed to be the guest on Saturday. No one can find where Ben Davis is, what happened to him. His Facebook is gone. It's like he was erased from the surface of the earth. Nobody can find out where Ben Davis is. And Ben, if you're listening, please contact me, because we'd really like to know how you're doing. We're concerned, and we hope that you're okay. So that's what's going on. If Ben is not the guest, we're just going to have this open forum discussion on Saturday night, and we'll see what happens. But bizarro, really. What happened to Ben Davis? Sunday night on Command the Cobra show, he's going to have a returning guest, David Sloan, I believe. Yes, David Sloan. And I'm still waiting to find out who's going to be the guest for Fate Magazine Radio following Command the Cobra show. So that's pretty much a rundown on the activity for KGRA this upcoming weekend. And hopefully we'll hear seriously from Ben Davis. A few of us are concerned because he was definitely being controversial and rubbing certain individuals the wrong way. And yeah, he's nowhere to be found now. Like I said, his Facebook is gone. Poof. I haven't checked his YouTube, but scary stuff. It's like he was erased. I'll try to get more information as we learn of it. So we'll see what happens. Remember that I'm going to go outside and raise the gain on the camera because it was cloudy. Now it's a little dark on that screen because the clouds were covering it. So I'm going to have to go out and raise the gain a bit. But what was I going to say? Oh, don't forget, August 21st, P&K Space Imaging. They will be streaming the solar eclipse, and Mark D'Antonio will be there. I'm seeing shooters, too. Holy, wait a minute. I'm seeing activity. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to put my song and go outside and raise the gain. But I just saw a shooter go from the bottom of the screen toward the top. And the bottom is, it's still early. It's only 9:45 Eastern time, 9:46. The bottom of the screen is where Cassiopeia is, and that's where the activity will be emanating from, because Perseus is below that. So hopefully we'll see some activity. And tonight, really, it's the day before the peak, and the day of the peak, and the day after the peak. These are the 3 nights you really want to be going outside to look. Of course, Saturday, optimum. But tonight, of course, this morning, Friday, oh, another one. Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Get out there if you can. If you have weather conditions that are conducive to viewing the stargazing, do it. Look to the northeast. Get out there with your family, with your friends. Enjoy. I definitely want to say a big hello to everybody in YouTube again. And like I said, thank you to Patrice Sheridan, and you will hear what I had to say. And I think Amanda's going to cry. I think Amanda's going to cry because I had a few words about Amanda. And again, I'm not going to leak too much. And I did say a few words. I did bring up some names like Lorraine and Kathy, ex-lady, Ben, Duplicat, Arnie, and Prow. Those, because I spoke about the time stamp thing. So you're going to, and it's, like I said, I thanked everybody in YouTube chat. I wish I could have said everybody's name, but it would have been kind of ridiculous if I'm there. And I want to thank, blah, 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 blah. I would have been there half an hour. And then, you know, it's not easy to remember everybody's names. Like Carmen Mauricio is a given. I remember that, even though I didn't mention it. But the first names that came to head because of the timestamp thing that Arnie's been helping me, Duplicat, Ben, and Prow. They've been feeding me the time, so those are the names I constantly see. So those are the ones that gave me a quick recall to mention their names during the interview. And Lorraine I've known for a long time, an ex-lady, and they're good friends of mine. And, of course, I had to speak about Amanda. So, but you'll see how I talk about everybody in chat tomorrow. And it was honest. It was from my heart. And I pretty much touch on a lot of areas where I felt it was necessary to discuss. And zombie. I know. Lisa, you know what? If I ever do a show again, which I probably will, as a guest, I'm going to take a list of all these names, and I'm going to talk like one of those car commercials or one of those medication commercials where they go, they say it so fast, it's like inaudible. You can't even understand it. And I'm going to just pop off everybody's name in like 15 seconds. And I did mention D. D's name came up in the interview. And, of course, Heidi, Al, Brian, Cindy, and Mark D'Antonio. I spoke glowingly of Mark. And it was all honest. Because a certain topic came up, and I just wanted to use Mark as an example in that question. So I'm not going to give no more away, because I'm like giving up the whole freaking interview. And Patrice would get upset with me if I started leaking out all the information that was in the interview tonight. Anyway, let's see. Hold on 1 second. I'm getting a message from a guest. Anyway, so I'm going to go outside, put my song back on, raise the game, because I'm seeing activity already. Okay, a lot of people have been asking me, what happened to the stream from last night? Well, I deleted it because it absolutely was pathetic. Last night was, and I saved it on my computer. Oh, boy, I better record everything that I'm doing right now. Matter of fact, I got to do that right away. Right away. Am I recording? Yep, I'm recording everything. I still have it saved on my computer, the recording, but I deleted it off of YouTube because I am not going to put anything up there that is absolutely ridiculous and have people have high expectations and saying, Perseids Meteor shower activity. And then they're watching the screen for hours upon hours, and there's like 3 in the whole freaking night. No way. I'm not going to do that. It's not fair. Some people would, just to get hits and monetize, but not me. I don't play that. If it doesn't fit my standard and quality, it's off. It's gone. And last night, to be honest, without going into an 18 plus category here, was a bomb. It was really, really slow last night. And I have the sheet, and again, I want to thank all those that gave me the timestamps. In all that time last night, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 in 7 hours. No. I'm not keeping that. People will be like, where's the meteors? No way. Can't do it. Now, I did save it because when I do the compilation, video, at least I have them to make that collection and put a video together to put back on YouTube. And yeah, I did go off on a nice little tangent, and I just, anybody that was able to hear it, I hope you appreciated that, and maybe it was a good positive message for some. But yeah, I'm not going to keep a video like that up because it's like I said, generally it's just not fair to put something out there and say live coverage of the Perseids Meteor shower, and then you see 5. Or actually it was 20 over a 7-hour span. That's ridiculous. I mean, tonight might be interesting. And already it's really early, and I've seen 5 on the screen. That's a quarter. That's 25% of the whole night last night in a half hour. That's what it's about to me. And yes, Daryl, you're absolutely right, because they were not emanating from the Perseids. A lot of it was the Delta Aquarids last week. Definitely. Without a doubt, that's where a lot of that activity was coming from. Because they were not emanating from the radiant point of Perseus. Except that bright shooter, that definitely was. That one that I always been showing, that was definitely from the radiant point in Perseus. The best one that we've seen so far. Okay, so I'm going to go outside, raise the gain up. It looks dark on the YouTube screen. Oddly enough, it looks bright on my... Oh, it's amazing what I see on my camera. This is why I record, by the way. The clarity is incredible. The difference is unbelievable. How it's so much watered down by getting streamed to what is actually being seen on my camera right now on my screen in real time. I'm seeing lots of stars on my real-time screen, and they're diminished water. They're washed out by the streaming itself on YouTube. Not bad. I mean, it's not that much of a difference, but there is a difference. So that's why I'm now going to start recording a lot when I'm doing this. Anyway, let me get out there. It looks like it's clearing up nicely. If anything, we might have tonight and Saturday night, because again, tomorrow night is not looking good at all. Not at least by the forecast. Maybe it'll change, but right now, scattered thunderstorms all night tomorrow night. Okay, so I'm going to play my song one more time while I go outside and take care of a few things. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and everybody that's watching. And, of course, all my good friends and family, really, in YouTube chat. So I'll be right back. All right, we're back. And I want to say goodnight to Lisa in the UK. Thanks for being here. And I will tell Mom that you say hello. All right. It's open lines tonight for Jimmy Church. I think I'm going to pass on that tonight. And I'm just going to try to find something in the archives here to play. I could give you guys a quick sneak peek. A little tease of tomorrow's show. But I don't think that'd be fair. It wouldn't. Let's see. What could we play here? Hey, matter of fact, I'll play that. Let me... Oh, and I got copyrighted last night, and I don't know what the hell I was playing that I got copyrighted. Nothing serious, but did get copyrighted. Phenomenon. Cheryl. All right, let's see. I got to fast forward it a little bit.
Name implies Cheryl reports in time and encounters
reporter and editor
individuals who are phenomena.
All right.
Star Tom DeLong, who recently announced
reporter and editor Linda Moulton.
I'm trying not to play the music.
World-renowned experience.
That music will nail me.
Rendlesham Bitwater's incident, John Burroughs.
I'm really in a music mood tonight. I really wish I could play, but then I would have to delete the video.
Moulton Howe.
And there's that music. Oh, man. I bet you YouTube picks up even that littlest.
campaign, Phenomenon Radio has tried to keep up with the persistent rumors from several different groups of military, astronaut, science, and even the rock music Blink 182 star Tom DeLonge, who recently announced that by May of this year, he will have an announcement concerning his work with some government sources to open up some truth about the fact that we're not alone in this universe and we never have been. From my perspective as a TV documentary producer and investigative reporter who has long been trying to understand government silence about publicly reported UFO phenomena, the evolution of physical evidence of an alien presence on Earth ranges from the worldwide bloodless, trackless animal mutilations to thousands of humans reporting missing time and encounters with non-human entities of various sizes, shapes, and colors, plus increasing numbers of whistleblowers from military and science who report firsthand knowledge about secret space programs that have been communicating with an alien presence since at least the early 1960s in Project Sigma. Today, in 2017, there is also an increasing number of groups and individuals who are blogging on the internet about demands for government disclosures to tell humans on planet Earth the truth about UFOs and ETs. One of those bloggers is Cheryl Costa, who has produced since 2013 a popular weekly newspaper blog called New York Skies for SyracuseNewTimes.com in New York. As the name implies, Cheryl reports about the past and present sightings of UFOs over New York State going back to records that are 200 years old. Cheryl says that of all the worldwide sightings that have reached the public, at least 4% of them come from New York State alone. Cheryl was born in April 1952 and today is 65. She served 2 stretches of military service in Vietnam for the U.S. Air Force from 1971 to 1972, and then was in the U.S. Navy in submarines from 1974 to 1981. Cheryl is now a retired aerospace security engineer. She worked at Lockheed Martin from 1980 to 2011, and then went to work for 2 newspapers, including the Syracuse New-Times. Since childhood in Corning, New York, Cheryl has been intrigued by the UFO phenomenon. From 1998 to 2001, she hosted the X Factor talk radio program in Washington, D.C., covering high strangeness topics. Recently, on March 25th, 2017, Cheryl, with her co-author Linda Miller, released a new book entitled UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States 2001 to 2015. And this week, the book exploded on social media and is now ranked #1 on Google. Cheryl Costa also calls herself a UFO disclosure activist. After this short commercial break, Cheryl will join Phenomenon Radio to talk about her new book and to describe how she is now joining political efforts to force the U.S. government to open up its UFO files and finally end its strict policies of denial about an alien presence on Earth since at least the FDR administration.
There's that music. And World War II. Oh, it's even on my TV. I gotta lower my TV down. Can't have that. All right, let's skip through that. Let me get this organized here. It's kind of crazy that I got to be on like such a. It's insanity. I can't even play 3 seconds of it. It's got me like jumping. All right, let's go. I really just should just go for it and play music and delete it after and then do a compilation because I am recording it. But then it's going to be something that people can't come back and look at it if we do get a lot of activity. And that's not fair. So that's the only reason I'm kind of hesitating to do the music thing. Oh, there's the music again. Come on.
Amazon.com, and that the title again is UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States 2001 to 2015, and that I understand in just the last 48 hours, social media has exploded because of a press release that I think you had put out. Can you explain to us what all is happening and what you released?
Well, what we did was about a couple of weeks ago, I started doing some initial salting with various media sources, see if I could get some small, low-level stories done in smaller newspapers. And I did a story with the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, or what they call it Seattle PI. And they had one of their freelance reporters do a story with me, a guy by the name of Jake Ellison. Well, they had the article done about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. They wanted to wait until the book was officially up on Amazon. And we were still monkeying around with a proof. So we told them, sure, wait till we're hot. And we got our second proof last Friday. Everything was okay, so we went ahead and released the book, and it was live Saturday night, the 25th. And I let Jake know, and he let the editors know, and the story went up about 48 hours ago. And what happened yesterday was 2 stories went out. He did the one with the Seattle PI. He did a slightly altered version of it and released it with SF Gate, which is a San Francisco Chronicle online edition. And both of them went through the roof. I didn't know about it initially. And then the SF Gate one, the San Francisco Chronicle one, started going crazy apparently in social media out there in California, because the flavor of that part of the story was California is #1 for UFO sightings based on our study. And it started going crazy, and then I started getting email from people telling me, "Hey, you better check up on this. You know, you just showed up in the Grudge Report."
I'll be done.
And then I get an email. Then I get an email from a producer at KABC Radio 790, and they want to talk to me on their afternoon drive time show. So I agreed to do that, and I did exactly that last evening. And what was interesting was we watched the actual title of the book on Google. There were 2 things we were monitoring. One that said search line on Google that said California is #1 for UFOs, and we saw a flavor of articles piling up. And then we also were monitoring the actual name of the book, on another Google. And one of the cool things we noticed was all day long there was a little ad off to the side, and it was for Amazon.com, and it had a picture of the cover of our book. And then about supper time, that ad changed to a paid ad from Barnes & Noble with that same logo of our book. And Barnes & Noble literally saw something was going down, and they put a paid ad in to cover it. In fact, the paid ad is still running.
And that means that Barnes & Noble looked at traffic and realized that they better get ready in their store to get your book available for people who are coming in, or how to get it. And Cheryl, this really is important to underscore what we talked about earlier today, that 2 weeks ago when you were trying to format notices for the release of the book, you sent out, right, 100 different press releases to 100 TV, radio, and newspapers with information about this new book, and explain to the audience what happened, which has been typical, and why this is so refreshing that it has been counteracted by social media, and now it's got a lot of buzz about it. But what happened 2 weeks ago?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I spent a couple of days sending out. I already had a planned list of organizations I was going to send it to. I was sending it to the 4 big TV stations in every principal city in the top 10 states, and I was offering them a story because each of their states were in the top 10, which is a good hook. And I reached out to the newspapers in those areas and all of that. And the whole thing added up to about 100. Nobody responded. Finally, after about 3 days, the editor from the Seattle PI had a stringer contact me and said they're going to do an article. So I said, fine, great. And we sat down one afternoon, did a nice article. I gave him all good stats, and I sent him charts and graphs and all this. And he wrote a real nice article, and then they decided to sit on it till the book was actually hot on Amazon. And what's interesting was I reached out to everybody we thought would have jumped on the thing in a heartbeat. I reached out to Fox and Friends, all of these sorts of things. And amazingly, this is something that surprised me. Just in the last few years, you can't find a news desk telephone number for most of these news organizations anymore. Most of them, they either want you to go through a form or email it to them. I was talking to a TV station here regionally, and I said, I've sent you 4 letters in the last 3 weeks. And they said, you did? And finally, I finally got a live guy on their news desk telephone number this morning and pitched him personally. He said, send me over and he gave me his personal ID over at the station, and I sent it to him. He got back to me this afternoon and says, I'm presenting it to the anchors tomorrow. Maybe we'll have a story. So I'm optimistic. I got a local PBS station to agree that we're going to do a story. When they saw the data, they went bananas. I have reached out to PBS at WGBH in Boston, 7 different people out there. I can't get a response from one of them.
Well, and isn't it true that there was some editor in one of the 100 that you sent out who either you called or they called you to explain the absolute out of it reply that you got from one of those?
Oh, okay. I wrote the science editor at a major paper on the West Coast, and he came back to me and said, no thanks. And I dropped him back a one-liner and said, can you kind of give me a sense of why? And I expected to hear something silly or something like this, but no, he came back and he quite literally said, the issue of UFOs, and this is a quote, was settled long ago.
And he probably is thinking of Project Blue Book in the 60s that you, I, and all of us know in 2017 was concocted by the CIA to be a red herring, to have a place for the public to report UFO sightings, while at on Fort Belvoir, they had a real Project Blue Book where they were getting all kinds of movies, photos, and this ties into even autopsy film on actual extraterrestrial biological entity bodies. That's the huge disconnect that we are dealing with when it comes to the mainstream media. It is so conditioned by government policies of denial, and they are missing the biggest story of truth on planet Earth.
There's another factor here. I was lamenting this to Steve Bassett of the Paradigm Research Group. He's our Washington, D.C. UFO lobbyist and disclosure lobbyist.
Europe.
Been doing it for 20 years. And Steve came back to me and he said, here's what's going through their minds. And he said, what are they going to go up against? The government policies? What are they going to go up against? Government rules, government security? No. Me as a reporter, I'm going to be ridiculed. And he told me, he says, welcome to his world. What I was up against with the media, he's been dealing with for 20 years.
Yeah. But there are a few of us who have said we're going after the pressure of fact, no matter what, let the chips fall where they may. And Cheryl, I really think it is beginning to shift. The audiences are far ahead of any government release. And some people in the media that have talked to me privately, they are convinced that we're not alone in the universe. So when you take that title that you are also working under, in addition to being a reporter and a blogger, is a disclosure activist. How are you and others trying to keep pushing this forward, no matter what happens from some of the, we'll say, the rumors that we're going to have some sort of an announcement this summer? Ever since President Obama left office and the hype we had that it's going to happen any minute, type of thing. I mean, at one point in the last month, just before the end of his administration, my editor and I got on the phone one evening and talked, and I said, look, do you want me to write a couple of stories and have them in the can just in case? I just got to fill in the facts about, if Obama comes forward and calls a press conference and said, we're not alone in the universe, he said, yeah, do it. And we'll just fill in the loose details. And I did. I wrote a couple of stories to accommodate that scenario. And so this happened before the election?
No, after the election.
Oh, yeah. So you were thinking, can we do this even with Trump being elected? But if you go back, Cheryl, let's rack the timeline back into 2016, and you had Podesta tweeting, and you had Hillary Clinton on Kimmel suggesting that if she were elected, she was going to get to the bottom of what was in the UFO files, except, this was the caveat, for those documents that were classified in the interest of national security. But I think everybody was feeling that she was going to be elected, and that at the beginning of 2016, we were finally going to get one of those big headlines, "We're not alone." Did you sense that, and were you trying to ride that wave when you wrote these articles, even with Trump being elected?
No, no, I didn't. I looked at this and said, okay, Hillary's out. This isn't going to happen through Hillary. But I did. Okay, I wrote two articles. I wrote one where President Obama did this before he left office, sometime in that 30-day lame duck period before they inaugurate the new president. And I wrote a scenario of what it might look like. You wouldn't believe the hate mail I got. And then I wrote one that was quite literally titled, "Will Hillary Clinton be the mother of disclosure?" This is after she lost the election. And the flavor was this, and Steve Bassett was of the feeling that if she would come forward, sit down with a major mainstream reporter of the press and come clean about the, oh God, now I'm losing, what was it called? I want to call it the Rockwell Project. No,
the Rockefeller Initiative.
Yes, that's it, the Rockefeller Initiative.
Yeah.
And come clean about that, because I remember all through the election, Steve kept trying to get these moderators of these debates to bring that question up, and they wouldn't do it. And I'll give you an example here. About 3 weeks ago, I did an article about there in the past year and a half, Jimmy Kimmel has had 3 former presidents and a presidential candidate, Hillary, come on, and when he's asked that hard question about the subject matter, they get all kind of awkward and nervously giggle and change the subject.
Yes, and
I spelled it out, and I said, when is, in my original copy, I said, when is 60 Minutes or 2020 going to ask this question? My editor changed it, when is mainstream media going to ask this question?
Yes, and Obama, when he was on with Kimmel and when they were talking about were there really UFO files or not, and Obama said something like, I'm not supposed to talk about it, or it's classified. And Jimmy Kimmel said, is that what you're supposed to say? And Obama said, yeah, that's what they tell us to say. There was always a sense that people had that he was really being literal, not funny.
Yes, agreed. You know, look what they told us back in the 50s. The Canadian Prime Minister back in the 50s said, America treats this subject matter with such high classification that it's classified higher than the H-bomb. And I doubt that it's come down in classification since the 50s. And so, I mean, theoretically, had it come down like normal I've worked with classified material over the years. There's about a 20, even in worst case, a 50-year declassification process. This stuff seems to be exempt by it. This is the goofy part.
Yeah, and in all of this very complex matrix that is trying to cover up this huge truth, we're not alone, and there is advanced intelligence, and it interacts with this planet and has been doing so for millions of years. What provoked you to work with Linda Miller for, I think you said 16 months, on solid weekends to produce UFO sightings desk reference United States 2001 to 2015?
Well, okay, because I was writing a weekly column. By the way, Linda Miller is Linda Miller Costa. She is my wife. Okay, so you know, Linda and I had done this compilation. We did this process for New York State. Okay, we brought NUFORC and MUFON data together. We crunched it, we sanitized it, we put county data into it, and we produced some amazing charts and had some amazing information. And, of course, I was using this stuff in my column. And one night we were sitting here eating a pizza and said, you know, why don't we try and do something nobody's ever done? Let's try this for the entire United States. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we didn't, you know, we both sat there and said, oh, maybe it'll take a year. It took 16 months, you know. But 16 months, was that all compiling? No, I had it all crunched out in about 10, 11 months, but it took us the rest of that time to format it and to get it into a form. And then, of course, I had to write some narrative to go with it. And the book looks like a book of like the Census Department did it. It's got charts, graphs, tables, and we can give you the UFO sightings down to the county level for all 3,027 counties.
In the United States?
Yes.
Wow. And tell about the reason why counties and looking at counties and putting them in as a category is so important in the United States. Okay,
well, NUFORC didn't collect that data. MUFON did, but it was dependent upon the person who was making the entry. And we found that a lot of people didn't have a clue what county they were in, you know, because maybe they were out visiting somebody and they saw the sighting and they didn't know what county they were in, okay? So what we did was by putting it in, you have, especially out in rural areas, you have some of these rural areas are not much more than a road crossing, a cattle crossing. Sometimes it's a road crossing. There's a general store and a volunteer fire department and maybe a half a dozen trailers, and that's the town. And the problem is when you start, unless you put a map on the wall and start putting pins in it, you can't see a pattern because you don't know where all these little burgs are. I mean, if I tell you, oh, hey, there's Albany, New York, hey, that's easy. You know, so they had X number, 100 or 1,000 sightings there. But if I tell you Weltonville, Maryland, Weltonville, New York, you'd say, oh, that place had one. You know, but maybe there's 50 of them right there in that county.
Right.
So we wanted to show patterns. And
right.
because this book was designed to be a researcher's tool and an investigator's tool, that's why we did it.
And I know how important this is for county analysis in animal mutilations alone, because sheriffs are by county. And if you've got a sheriff in a county that has 256 animal mutilations over a 3-month period, which happened in Colorado and the surrounding states more than once, that in a period of time they would be having that many animal mutilations formally in their files in their office. Well, if you said what happened in Sterling, Colorado, you might have somebody who replied there wasn't any. But Sterling is the county seat of Logan County. And Logan County would have 263 animal mutilations over a 2 to 3 month period. And that shows that if you don't go into the phenomena at a county level and in England, a county level as well. And in France, you have to do it at province levels. Otherwise, you're going to miss whole data sets.
Yeah, I had a lot of people say that they thought that was stupid. You know, you just got to have the city. And I said, it doesn't do you any good. It's okay for big clusters like a major city like New York or something like this. As Linda said to me when she was doing the layout work, she started seeing patterns that I didn't see when I was compiling the tables. And she started saying, hey, did you notice this, you know? And I'd get in there and look at it and say, oh, my gosh, I didn't know that, you know. I'll give you an example. Okay, up here in New York State, if you looked at the sightings for a year based on the month, it's kind of like low through the, we'll say like 5, 6, 7 through the January, February, March, April. It starts to tick up 1 or 2. Get into May, it's warming up, so it starts going up, and there's this big hump in the middle with June, July, and August being the high season for sightings. And it's usually a very pronounced hump, and then it starts trickling off into the fall, and it gets down low again November and December. Well, we thought that was the classic pattern, and everybody used to say, well, yeah, it's the summer months. What do you expect? More people are outside. And that was an assumption we made. When we got all 50 states done, that was not the case. We found it was latitude dependent.
Yes.
If you were up around New York State, go across the country out to Washington, all through the Midwest, Michigan.
All right. I'm going to pause that for a second. I'm actually going to give Cheryl a call. Maybe she'll stick around for a bit. I do got to touch base with her with Pine Bush anyway. So let's call Cheryl.
Hello.
Hello, Cheryl.
Yes.
This is Bill of KGRA and the gentleman from Pine Bush.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that you do have it marked on your calendar because I'm going to meet with Domini, the community organizer, in 3 weeks. So you are ready to speak at Pine Bush, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and currently I'm doing a live Skywatch on YouTube.
Okay.
On YouTube, and I'm airing the show that you were on with Linda Moulton Howe and John Burroughs.
Ah, very good.
Yes. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you in May, the 3rd Saturday, and in Pine Bush. And I will give you more details about specifics once I speak to her and I sit down with her, because I'm really looking for other speakers. I got you, I got Mark D'Antonio, and who else do I have? I have one other person. Oh, Rosemary Guiley.
Ah, wow. Okay.
So I am looking for two more, hopefully from the area, from say New York. I mean, I can reach out to Richard Dolan. He's done Pine Bush a couple of times. I was even thinking of Leaf.
You might reach up. If you drop me an email, I can get you the guy's name. Tom Conwell. He's up in Troy, New York.
Uh-huh.
He did similar research to me, except he's done it strictly with fireballs, and then what he does is he goes in and analyzes where the clusters are, and he finds out what industries or pollution they have there, and what they might be, the UFOs might be loitering around.
Interesting. Do you have any affiliation or connection with any of the MUFON individuals of New York State?
A little bit. I mean, I'm not a MUFON member, but
I know.
Sam Falvo is he's in Utica, and he's the state director, and he talks rather regularly down here in Binghamton. Not Binghamton, Syracuse. We have a small MUFON club down here, and I've seen him speak at that thing.
Well, would you happen?
He's a good investigator.
Would you happen to have his contact if I email you?
Yeah, drop me an email. You've got my email address, right?
I believe so. Don't say it here because we're actually live on my YouTube.
Okay.
Let me just go to my Gmail and see if it pops up. Let me just do that quickly. Yeah, everybody's enjoying your show interview right now that I just put on pause that you were on with Linda Moulton Howe on Phenomenon.
That was a lot of fun. And I felt bad for John because he was sick that weekend.
Yes.
That day.
I think he was undergoing maybe eye surgery at that time. I don't remember.
I don't know the details.
Yeah. And you also were on when I produced the show with Patrice.
Yes. In fact, I'm going to be on with Richard Dolan on Monday.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
That's interesting because he rarely. I've got it. Author at I've got it.
Yeah. Okay. You drop me a liner on the author account, and I'll get you Sam's contact information, and I'll get you the contact information for Tom Conwell.
Excellent, because I really do want to incorporate the New York aspect because of the Hudson Valley.
Right.
And that's Pine Bush. It's the center of.
Well, Sam has done a couple of investigations down there, down pretty close to Pine Bush. I remember he gave a presentation at last year's MUFON convention about one of the ones he did down there. So he'd be a really good egg to have to come there.
Oh, that sounds really good. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll have, like I said, yourself, the MUFON state director, and. What was his name? Sam?
No, his name
Tom?
is Sam.
Okay.
And then Tom Conwell up in Troy.
Got it. Yeah, I'll drop you that because, like I said, in a couple of weeks I'm going to be sitting down with her. We had Travis last year. Travis does want to come back, but I don't want to be redundant and get the same individuals, although Mark D'Antonio was amazing, and I definitely want to have Mark, and he's a good friend of mine, come back and
Very
speak.
good.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Rosemary Guiley.
I've heard the name, but I don't know that much about her.
Yeah, she's been involved in the paranormal field for a really long time. She's written numerous books, and maybe I'll reach out to Rosemary, and she has a 2-hour show on KGRA. Maybe if you're interested, I can arrange for you to go on with Rosemary.
I would like that very much.
I will definitely work on that. Always a pleasure. I know it's getting late. I'm going to send you. Oh no, I'm talking to you on your phone. If you go to Bill NY Skywatcher on YouTube, I'm streaming live right now. I'm seeing a lot of activity.
Well, actually, you got me in bed.
I'm sorry. Anyway, you have a blessed night. Get some rest, and I'll be in touch with you. I'll send you the email, and we'll take it from there.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Have a good
Bye-bye
night.
now.
Bye-bye. All right, so that was Cheryl Costa. So that's looking really good. That's an optimistic thing right there. All right, I've got to catch up to everybody that's putting all these times on there. Okay, so what do we got? 10:30, 43? 10:30, 43? Let's see. What else did I miss? I missed a large shooter on the screen, huh? 10:28, 38. Oh, it looks like it's going to be a good night. Oh, this could be good tonight. Anyway, so as you can see how I network, and I do what I got to do. That's great. I already got the whole list of speakers in one phone call. Oh, man. Now I could get the state director of MUFON for New York State, the investigator that did stuff around Pine Bush, from Troy, what was it, Tom and Sam, Cheryl, Mark D'Antonio, and Rosemary Guiley. All new names, all local. I don't have to stress. That's great. Oh, that's good. This is good. Tim Robinson. Everybody's saying we just had a nice shooter on the screen. So that's good. Okay. Let's get back to the show. So we'll hear more about Cheryl. And again, Rosemary Guiley. Oh, let me see if she's around. Let me see if I can message her. Let me just text her. I know it's late, but Cheryl Costa would love to do your show. She's from New York. UFO researcher. She will, let me just do this quick. She will be on with Richard Dolan Monday. Have a great night, Rosemary. Take care. There we go. Let's see who else I can contact at this time of the night. Oh, nice one. Oh, Z4. Nice. Okay, let's see who else I can annoy. Nah, I won't say that. Let's go back. See, there's a lot of people on my list. Can you imagine me as a producer, how many contacts I have on my Skype? It's scary. I just sent a message to Dan Willis. And Dan, if you're watching, hello to you. And looking forward to hearing you on QP Science in the near future with Jill Hansen. Dan is amazing. He's really an interesting person to listen to. A ton of knowledge. And hopefully we'll get Dan on with Jill very soon. Let's see. A lot of these people are away or offline. I wish. Linda Zimmerman. She's offline. All the people I would love to talk to right now are not online. Oh, man. It always ends up that way. I'm not going to bother that person. I'm definitely not bringing that person on. I'll have 50,000 thumbs down. You guys would know who I'm talking about just by me saying that. Whitley Strieber. He's not online, but I would love to talk to him. Let's see, who else do I got on here? Oh my God. It takes me like 10 minutes just to go through the whole list. I could freak my sister out and call her. Put her on the spot. She would have a panic attack. Oh, man. That's not nice. Let's see. Everybody's like not around. Well, at least we got to talk to Cheryl quickly. I'm so upset that I lost all my questions that I had for a lot of the people that are on my list. gone when my computer crashed. Oh, my phone is barking too much. All right, we'll just leave that alone. Anyway, we'll continue with the show. But before I do that, I want to say hello to everybody that's watching on YouTube. Oh, my God. Imagine me pranking my sister. She won't even know. She might start cursing. Oh, another one. Nice. Z2. Nice. All right. I got to check for timestamps. Okay. 10:34:49. 10:34:49. I need to pay attention to what's going on in chat. 10:35:14. Let's see. Okay, I think I caught up. It looks like it's going to be a really great night tonight. Mom, we're seeing a lot of activity already, and it's so early. A lot of it's not Perseids, but we're still seeing a lot of activity. And I can't even imagine what could be in about 2 hours from now. Huh? Well, lay down behind me on the couch. Oh, Perseids. That's what I said. Last night was pathetic. I said the same thing. Yeah, I did before. Last night was horrific. Well, tonight looks like it's going to be a gold mine of activity. Yeah, Mom's in the background. Say hello, Ma.
Hi, everybody.
She's hanging out and watching on the dark screen in the room. It's nice to look at this in a nice dark room, by the way. If you can get it on your TV, do it. Lay back, chill out, and just watch the sky. Tonight it's looking like a really active night. Remember, the night before or the morning before, well, the night morning of, the day of, and the day after, this meteor shower will be active. So tonight into tomorrow morning, tomorrow night, peak night, into Saturday morning, then Saturday night into Sunday morning. So the next 3 nights, if you can get outside and stargaze, do it. If your weather is conducive to doing so. And if you don't have the millions of bugs like we have here, get out there and enjoy. Get the coffee, get whatever you need, the munchies, and lay back and let your eyes adjust for at least a good half hour and enjoy. It's a display for free. I mean, nature's beauty. Can't get better than that. Close what door? Why?
Because it's going to be late and I don't want to...
Oh, you're so paranoid with having a door open.
But the tiny room...
Yeah, that's a security door, screen door.
I know, but I don't want that... It's... You know, they...
I'll close it when I change the battery, because I'm going to have to change this battery any second. Yeah, I'll do it. I will definitely do it. All right, so let's do a quick shout out to everybody that's in chat. We have Andy Morrow, Arnie, Bobby Bibble Babble. Say that fast 5 times. Carmen and Mauricio. Is a bug. Okay. CND in Canada. Danny Jackson, Daryl, D, Duplicat, Finch, Genghis Khan, Kathy, Mikeson, Jello, Nancy, Rockstar, Ronald, Sarah, Ted Bronson, Tim Robinson, and Weird Guy. And I always say this, don't forget, Sky Tour Livestream, Mark D'Antonio's channel, as well as P&K Space Imaging, and Sarah Fezio for beautiful artwork. Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, Fezio, F-E-Z-I-O. Check her channel. Beautiful artwork. Okay. So let me get back to the show so I can sit back and change batteries and battery. Do what I need to do on my end. Let's see. Any other timestamps before I disappear? Okay, I don't see any. Mom still thinks she lives in New York City. Let's just put it that way. All right, small shooter in Z2. And hello to Mark D'Antonio, his ears must be ringing because I just mentioned his name. I just talk about Mark and he comes into the room. And I'm going to continue. Matter of fact, why don't we do that? Let's play the Mark D'Antonio show since he's in chat that he was on with Commander Cobra, because that was a really good show. And maybe we'll continue later on with Cheryl Costa and other interviews. But yeah, let's do that. Let's play the Mark D'Antonio interview that he was on with Commander. That was a really good show. One of my favorites to produce ever. Yeah, they busted my chops, but I was enjoying every minute of it. All in good fun. All right, Mark D'Antonio right here. Whoa! Oh my God, that scared me to death. That made me jump. All right, let's fast forward a little. I know I play his intro for about...
Radio, KJRradio.com. Your humble and most blessed host, Commander Cobra, once again, fortunate enough to be speaking to all of you, what I consider the greatest, or at least one of the greatest audiences on the planet. Hope everyone has had a very good week. It's been a very busy week all around. Our guest tonight is... we're very fortunate to have him come on board
and Alan
jump
Cerna.
up to fill both slots for me tonight. We're going to do a double header, but it didn't work out for one of our guests. I'll get to that. I do need to run down some ops and admin notes because I've been a little bit behind in getting some good stuff out, and I wanted to answer some of the mail that has come in to me. So stand by for our stellar guest. We'll get to that in one moment. Let's see. First, with some sadness, and earlier in the week I was in the chat rooms, and I thank everybody, and I'm going to ask for the continued prayers and support via the Wingman Foundation. That's wingmanfoundation.org. We'll put that out a little bit later into the chat room. Earlier.
Whoa! What the heck is that? Oh, that was weird.
Into the chat room. Earlier, about a week ago, we lost a KC-130 coming out of North Carolina, head to California for an exercise. We lost 16 members of the Marines and Navy in that crash. The crew, some special Marine Corps special operators were in that, and a Navy corpsman that was associated with the unit and that squad. It's a terrible hit. It's a huge loss. There's lots of families and lots of folks that are well into the grieving process now, and your help and support to the Wingman Foundation when we did the show earlier with them. This is precisely why they came together, and your help to them has been a big help. I've got one email note. Apparently, a number of you have reached out, looked at the site, and been supportive, and I thank you for that. It goes back to some of your great audience that I think you guys all are. I've had a number of military folks reach out to me, and I have been trying to answer all the emails in the past week, 10 days, and I promise I will get a personal note back to everyone in that process as quick as I possibly can. Thanks so much for those emails and your comments and stuff that you want to talk about or have looked into, and keep listening. I really appreciate your time taking that. Last of the T-shirts have gone into the mail. I am completely out of T-shirts. I'm getting ready for the next batch. Hopefully, I will be able to now understand the better demographics of the size department, and those folks that got the 3XL that are now using them as tents. I think they'll look very good on the beach, properly propped up with sticks, and you can make yourself a nice beach tent, and I promise I will get the proper sizes out very soon. John Lear wrote me a snail mail that I received this past week, talking about what absolute great time he had on the show. He enjoyed the questions, the interaction that he had with everybody via the chat room. And if anybody would like to converse directly with him, he's open for direct letters. And I have a letter and email that he said is, as long as I screened it, I could send it. So just contact me, and I'll be more than happy to send you that information. I think John did a great job with us. We had a very good time with him. A lot of his stuff is very funny. A lot of it's very controversial. He has an incredible life story that brought him to this point. And I think continued contact with him is good for him, and it's good for all of us. Mr. Stanley sent out a free book offer and a site. I sent it out earlier. I'll send it out again in a few minutes. And I think that will be well with and everybody to take a quick spot in what's in there and take a quick peek. There's some good stuff. Mr. Schratt let me know that the puzzle remains unbroken and unsolved, and no one made it on the time delay. I'm not sure if anybody actually got submissions in, but hopefully someone made an attempt. I know I tried, and I'm like to consider myself pretty sharp on a lot of that stuff and the ability. And even with his hints, I'm still working on it. Finally, I'd like to leave you that Mr. Hannibal, who was on, he was the second half of our 4th of July show, 4th of July weekend show that we did. He has that pre-published offer still in effect. And Skywatcher and I both were able to find out of print, no longer in print, first copies of his book, Wraith. And I talked to Otto earlier this week, and he was pretty surprised that I was able to find it. Mine came out of a library from Louisiana. That's how I tracked mine down. So go figure that. So questions, comments, please drop me a line at the email. It's on the page for the show. It's Task Force Griffin, KGR Radio. Correction, Task Force Griffin, KGRA at gmail.com. Finally, just all our thoughts, prayers, positive thoughts, positive energy for Ms. Schultz, who was supposed to be on our show tonight. She is the director of MUFON in Maine. She hopes to come on at a later date. She had some things that she had to take care of family-wise, and she's got a lot going on. And she was very, very kind to let me know in time so that we could work with Mark and get him to move up his schedule a little bit for us. And I appreciate the time, and we look forward to talking to her in the not-too-distant future. So, with all that said, our guest tonight, Mark D'Antonio, scientist, astronomer, what I really wished I had studied now in college as I look back, innovator, inventor, businessman, craftsman. I've seen the work he does in his day job. I've seen his work that he's done, and then when he's not working at his modeling company. Outstanding stuff, just all around great. He's also chief video analyst for MUFON. Mark, welcome to Task Force Griffin. Very excited to have you on tonight, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Great to be here, Commander. How you doing?
Very good. You told a very compelling story as we were getting warmed up, and I deeply appreciate what you shared. You're just an exciting guy. I love the stuff that you do online. I'm not as good a YouTuber as I probably should be, but the stuff that you have, the stuff that Skywatcher had sent me, just outstanding stuff. I really enjoy your presentations and always come away learning a few things. So let's jump into it a little bit. You made the trip back. We did a lot of talking. In fact, I should say that Mark and Skywatcher were very kind. They gave me a call as I was coming back up on a road trip after doing some work and setting up a project down in Delaware and Pennsylvania. And it was just great driving through New Jersey, these guys blaring in my head, going through the toll booths. And I don't know if the toll booth guy could figure out who I was talking to or what was going on. But I've got Skywatcher basically in one ear and Mark in the other, and we're just getting all jammed up for this show. So thanks. That was a great almost hour that you guys took off that road trip for me.
That's fun, isn't it? When you have someone to talk to, it actually makes it go by really fast, and you miss all the UFOs flying by.
Funny you say that, because I brought that up one night coming through the toll booth on the Guard State Parkway, and I was yakking about that, and one of the guys said, "Yep, triangle aircraft right over there," and he was talking to me the whole booth. Of course, everybody lost their mind behind us because it was obvious we were done with the money exchange. And he talked about it, and he was adamant, what he had seen, how he'd seen it, where it went. So there you go. If you're willing to ask, there's a lot of people that have info out there to share.
That's right, and these things are, they're omnipresent. They're everywhere, it seems. They've been all over the world. They show up in the oddest places. My sister, who doesn't even believe in these things, was awakened at 2 a.m. to find the entire town was without power, as she discovered in the morning, and when she finally woke up later. And this humming noise got in her ear, and she went to the window, and this gigantic black triangular thing was going over the house. And it had red lights that she said were very difficult to look at because they didn't really look like lights she's used to seeing. They were dim, yet they were bright. It was a weird way she described it. And it continued over some adjoining trees and went over the out of her view. So, what is that? I mean, do we say she's lying? Well, she has no reason to. And further, she didn't have any reason to call me at 2:30 in the morning to wake me up to tell me about this, but she did. And, she was really excited and sort of in a panic. So, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night, I said, I wanted to be there. I wanted to see that. I would have gotten in the car and chased it. Why didn't you get in the car and chase it? Go after it. Take pictures. and she was like, are you kidding me? I was in my slippers. I'm like, yeah. So I would have gone out in my underwear if I had to. Who's going to stop me? And if they do, I'm going to point and say, look, that's what I'm chasing. And you go, oh. Here. After. I mean, it would have been different, right? So I don't know. But, things are all
I don't have any brothers or sisters, so I always have a little difficulty understanding the sibling rivalry and the inability of one to get the other to do what they're supposed to do. But my son and daughter often explain to me that without that understanding, it's very frustrating when you can't get a sibling to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, so it's okay. I mean, so basically I had her report. And you know what? As I am the Mutual UFO Network's chief photo and video analyst. Whoop-de-poopy, okay? It's a great gig. I love doing it. But I can tell you this, all right? That kind of story, as real as I know it was to her, she saw what she said she saw. But it's only anecdotal information. It doesn't constitute evidence.
Right.
It's just information. And, now, if 5 people saw this from 3 different places in the town, then it might add up to some kind of evidence. But until it does, it's just an anecdotal information. She could have mistaken something. I always have to go back to that and say, look, and this is me being very hard on the data. I got to be really hard on this data because somebody has to do it. There's too many people willing to believe anything that comes along. And you can't afford to do that if you're really trying to get to the answer.
Now, you obviously take the what I consider the classical scientific approach to your work around this. Does that fall with favor or just? Well, but you clearly, when you start to editorialize or start to bend that a little bit, you make that clear.
Yes, I'll say something.
So, do you take a lot of heat for the approach from the rest of the community?
Oh, yeah. You can't believe it. Remember that there was a famous sighting called the Norway Spiral, and it was a beautiful video, and you saw this spiral white thing appearing in the sky over Norway in the early morning. And I got that video from that video guy that took the video literally minutes after it happened. Okay? So it was the middle of the night for me. So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, wow, it's so cool looking, because what you're seeing is actually what's happening. There's this increasingly larger and larger spiral getting bigger and bigger in the sky. It's white, it's glowing, and it has a turquoise line going right through the center of it, or a turquoise center to it. And I'm looking at that, and I'm watching what's happening. And then at the end, just as the event ends, you see the center seems to be covered with some kind of black object that expands outward. Sounds really cool. Sounds scary. Sounds unearthly. And everybody was reporting that it's a Stargate, it's this, it's that. And I responded probably within a half an hour. And if I thought better, I might have taken an hour and a half to make it sound like I might not have actually known what this was, because I did actually know what it was. I've seen it before. All right. It was a failed rocket launch. And we were looking at a fuel leak being illuminated, the fuel being illuminated by the sun. And then when the launchers decided it was going awry and they couldn't handle it anymore, they simply self-destructed the rocket. And then that explains the lack of fuel making further spiral moving outward. And that looked like, to observers, a black expanding, quote-unquote, Stargate opening up. It was just the lack of fuel causing it. So, for instance, and I got yelled at. I got people calling me names. I got hate mail for 2 days until the Russians owned up to having to launch the submarine ICBM that went awry and they had to detonate it. Okay. And I said, well, look, I've seen this before, okay? I watched a failed rocket launch before, and I saw it do exactly this. Right down to that turquoise thing. I said, do you know what that turquoise thing is? That turquoise line that's in the middle of that spiral is an aurora generated by the rocket in the ionosphere. And I said, if a shot turns up of this thing from the side, it's not going to be a spiral. It's going to be a corkscrewing white thing because it's coming at you, and the rocket is going in a corkscrew motion. It's pirouetting around and spewing the fuel. It's unbalanced, and sooner or later it's going to have to be detonated. And sure enough, a photo did turn up, and you see it's a corkscrew with a turquoise line going right down the middle.
Right.
And that occurred like a couple weeks later. That one showed up. Now, you know what I heard at my end from all the people that were berating me and calling me names? You know what I heard?
A big apology. Big apology.
No. I heard the crickets. Nothing. I heard nothing from anybody, and that's okay. I expect that. You need to have a really thick skin to do what I do, because you're going up against people that absolutely want to believe that their sighting is the sighting. And I want to be proven wrong. You have no idea. I've had experiences that I cannot explain. Okay, my family has had experiences, in fact, that we cannot explain. And I do not, say that someone didn't see what they said they saw. All I say is the data they are showing me to prove it doesn't show it. I'm not denying that someone, might have seen a UFO that zigzagged all over the sky. But I do acquaint them with the autokinetic effect. That is, where you're looking at an object in the sky, your eyes tend to dart around, and it makes it look like the object is carrying out some exotic motion. Okay? That's a human thing. It happens to your eye, right? Right? You fly.
Or like when you stare at something at night, and your rods have taken over because the cones don't work very well at night, and you're actually blind spotted, and it can cause all kinds of strange phenomena, and you can think you're seeing spheres that aren't there. That's why you have to move your eyes around.
Exactly right. And that's especially important probably for a pilot, I would imagine. Okay. And the thing is, in astronomy, we see that too, because when you're looking through a telescope, it's actually rare to look through a telescope these days. My observatory system, we actually just have a camera on the end of the telescope all the time, and it just transmits to a big screen.
Right.
Hey, that's great. But there is an object that is called the blinking planetary. It's a little nebula. And if you look at it dead center, the whole blue outer envelope fades away to nothing. You look to the right with averted vision, and it comes back. So it's called the blinking planetary for that very reason. Because the way your eyes shut down, the rod sensitivity is good for only so much, and the cones don't work well. And you got it. That's exactly what happens. So you end up having this issue. Yep.
Now, do you find, or what's your opinion and your evaluation, I guess, often we find that there is a intersection of UFO events that folks are driving towards an extraterrestrial type event, not the unknown military aircraft or the terrestrial type event, and a intersection with paranormal. What's your opinion on that?
Well, a couple of years ago, I would have told you that there's probably no connection for me, and that's changed. What's happened was, I had, 27 years ago, before all the other stuff that I had to have brain surgery because I only had like a few weeks to live. I had something going on in there that kind of snuck up, and they said that usually it's something that turns up on an autopsy, and why you had symptoms is beyond us. They took the thing out, and then several years later, actually, that several years is actually more than a decade. It was actually like 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years ago now. So 4 years ago, I started hearing voices, and I figured, oh, here we go. This is the latent brain injury from the surgery. Now the brain is starting to play back memories of conversations I might have had in the past, and I started seeing things. I started seeing people, that weren't there. They were semi-transparent people, and I would look at them, and I'd like, here goes my brain, marvelous organ. The thing is, playing back an old memory. I don't remember seeing that guy, but it was actually, you couldn't really tell features. It was more of a shape and an outline. And he looked kind of like the creature you saw in the abyss that took on human form.
Right.
Take away the shine, take away the reflectivity. It's sort of dull and weird looking. That's what I saw. And still see, actually. I still see every day. I see this stuff going on. Well, anyway, this went on for a while. I got 2 MRIs. I got a CAT scan. The brain was fine. So I even took medication to help me focus because I'd be working on a model or something, and all of a sudden I'm drawn to look over here to the right and to the left because somebody's calling me or whatever. And it's not just like, hey, Mark. It's like, Mark. It's like loud. And I go, whoa. And then nothing there. All right. But all the whole time, all this stuff that I was seeing and hearing, and I just made it sound like it was directed at me, but it wasn't really directed at me. It was like I was observing. I was a passive observer. And I always feel like I'm in a crowded room, no matter where I am and no matter who's in the room with me. If I'm
so
just me.
You're tuning into some kind of dimension, for lack of a better term?
For lack of a better term, I can't tell you what it is. I'm just telling you. It's like, just the facts, ma'am. I'm just reporting the facts. And that's all it is. Now, I don't know what this is. But the thing that changed my mind on all this, I thought it was my brain, playing tricks with me, because it might have been playing back something I might have seen or heard.
Sure.
And that's not unheard of, right?
No.
That's common. And I talked to the neurologist about it, and he says, well, that could be. But then one day I was working on a model for a movie that I was doing with Douglas Trumbull, who's a good friend of mine. He's lives up in he's an hour away, his studio, and we work together quite a bit. And I was doing a prop for the movie that we're working on up there. And this little tiny dog trots into my studio, and it spins around and lays down. Now, what kind of dog? I think it was a Pekingese type dog because it had that kind of like doink, 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 little, annoying
hop
bouncy gait.
Yeah,
you got it, right? And I couldn't really see it because I could only see it sort of as a blobby thing because it was semi-transparent as usual. And I'm staring at it while I'm working on this model going, man, my brain is an amazing thing. But I don't remember seeing a dog like that. And I stood up and I walked over to it. And I literally was standing over it. Now, don't get me wrong. People see things out of the corner of their eye all the time.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's something, maybe it's not. Okay? But I was standing there staring straight at it, looking down at it. And I could see the mass of the other side of it. Something that my brain wouldn't have seen unless I had the same exact vantage point that I had right at that moment. And so I was starting to wonder about that, saying, how could that be? This seems so weird. So I stepped on it. I took my left foot and I stepped in the space that it was occupying.
Okay, see, now I can't tell this story to Mrs. Cobra because no matter what kind of dimension this is, she cannot stand anything, especially to dogs, and harm. So this story never comes up when you're at the dinner.
I have two beautiful dogs. I have my dingo and I have a beautiful lab pit bull shepherd mix. Okay, and they're beautiful animals. And I had greyhounds before that. So see, I'm a dog guy.
Yep.
So when I stepped on this thing, let me put it this way then. For her, you can tell her, I put my foot in the same space that the dog was occupying.
Right.
Okay. And when I did that, it noticed. And it got up and started to run. However, it took my foot with it. It was like a bungee cord was wrapped around the bottom of my foot, right behind the ankle, almost at the floor. And someone wrapped it around and started running as fast as they could out of my studio. You could feel the tension increasing, like two north poles of a magnet trying to press together and not quite contacting. That's the feeling. But the pressure kept increasing to the point where I was trying to stay on the ground, and all of a sudden my left foot flew out from under me and went right up to the ceiling. And I fell down and landed. My right shoulder hit my workbench. The back of my head hit the concrete floor.
Aye.
And I was overjoyed because something amazing had just happened. Now, I didn't look at that as a ghost or paranormal thing, okay? And this is that crossover thing we're talking about where those roads meet, okay? I looked at that as this, to me, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. I'd love to have it explained medically because this is a doozy. This, to me, was rudimentary communication with a parallel world that may have been, bleeding through into our dimensional space. And that got me down the path of trying to look up parallel and multiverse theory. And I'm an astronomer. That's my degree. So I figured I'd dive into some papers. And I found one. In fact, I found two. The first paper I found was published a few years ago. And it stated that the Big Bang, when it occurred, there was not enough mass. And that's something we already knew. But when that happened, they said, we can account for the extra mass if we consider that a number of parallel universes were created at the same time. of a certain mass. And that certain mass will all add up to the missing mass. And they're pretty convincing.
That's why I love astronomy, because unlike when you just throw a constant into a mathematical equation to make something work, you guys and gals always have to get together and physically come up with, okay, we're talking about mass. We're talking about, even if you go into the other side of your discussion with antimatter, and you have to balance your scales out. You have to figure out, how could this occur? Because a lot of it is pointing this is the direction it went. That's why I really dig what you guys do, because you don't get balled up in a lot of other stuff, but you always have to get it to come out to be the equation has to equal out. All right. Well, before you go any further, we got to jump to a parallel universe for our first break. You're listening to Mark D'Antonio on Task Force Griffin, KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. We'll be right back on the backside. You want to hear the rest of this. Stand by.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Our world is a world of mysteries, strange disappearances, unusual happenings, mysterious phenomena. And this November, you can learn about the greatest mysteries of our time by joining us on the Mysteries Cruise. Enjoy several days at sea and attend exclusive private lectures with leading personalities like researcher Rosemary Ellen Guiley, author of more than 49 books, including The Gin Connection, podcaster Jim Harold, host of the Paranormal Podcast, and writer and researcher Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report. Set sail this November 8th through the 17th, 2017, aboard the Crown Princess and sail with us into the heart of mystery. Make your reservations before time runs out by visiting holidaymakertravel.com today, or reserve by phone at 877-642-4308. That number again is 877-642-4308. The mysteries of our time await you. Visit mysteriescruise.com.
There are many sounds in your day-to-day life. There are sounds that wake you up. Sounds that make you smile. Sounds that energize you. And sounds that help you relax. But there are some sounds that can alert you to danger and can help save lives. Wireless emergency alerts, now on many mobile devices, use a unique sound and vibration to bring you information about severe weather events, Amber Alerts, or other emergencies in your area. With critical information from local sources you know and trust, you can be in the know, wherever you are. For more information, visit ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio. Good evening tonight. Task Force Griffin is very lucky to have Mark D'Antonio on with us. We were halfway, three-quarters of the way through interdimensional astronomical description that he was talking about when he had an encounter. We're going to pick that right up, but I would tell you folks, if you could only hear the parts of the show that's going on when we're not on the air, gold. It is absolute gold. And Skywatcher does a really good job.
You sure you want them to hear that?
Well, I think it's gold. I think a lot of people get a kick out of it. All right, Mark, pick it up where you left off, where I so rudely interrupted you, talking about this intersection of the different dimensions and how it lined up with the explanation that astronomers use, starting with the Big Bang.
Yeah, and what's funny is, that incident I had in my shop was a real incident. It really happened. I'd like to think it didn't, because that threw my whole understanding of my science into a little bit of a spiral. Because
that's the exciting stuff, right? Isn't that the good stuff?
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I guess I made that sound like it was a bad thing. I don't want to live my life, and I haven't, in a way that excludes wonder and awe and seeing new things. Because that's absolutely not true. I run toward the new things faster than anybody else, most times. But so when this thing happened, and I felt strongly that this was a parallel universe bleed-through incident. And I don't know why I thought that, except that that's all that makes sense. And I had to think, I wonder if the paranormal world with the ghost hunters and so forth, are they really hunting parallel universe intersects? Is that what they're hunting? Maybe they're hunting bleed-through spots. And maybe in 100 years, this is going to become normal, everyday, ho-hum, boring science. People are going to say, yeah, well, no, we have a bleed-through here on this street. Yeah, just avoid the bleed-through on 5th and Main. Watch out for the bleed-through over there. That's pretty real. That's a pretty real-looking one. You might actually have that kind of, it might be that kind of culture in society in some future point. Right now, though, it's fringe science. And fringe and science shouldn't be in the same, sentence. I realize that.
Well, the quick comment I want to jump in on that. To me, it seems like, though, we would return to where civilization once was. At one time, the philosophies of most of the civilized groups that were walking across the planet had no problem explaining these kinds of things, as these phenomena were just part of, they couldn't explain it, but they were accepting of that phenomena. I mean, it shows up in everything. It shows up in Shakespeare. You find it, all kinds of recorded journals. So we may be returning back to a time where we were more open-minded, and it's not going to be against science. It'll be with science.
True. And you know what? I'll tell you this, Commander. One of the things that I find interesting about the whole thing with this type of quote-unquote science, okay, and I'll put it in quotes because it's not science yet. It's suspected to be potentially science. Is that a good enough of a disclaimer, right, for the science world? I think so.
Absolutely.
Well, so it's the suspicion that it might be science is good enough for me, because that means it merits exploration. Now, in the future, or currently, I should say, if we're going to head down that path, well, if you know anything about astronomy, you know that we find things we don't understand every day. Einstein, for instance, predicted that gravity waves should exist. But we've never seen them until we did, with two black holes that were merging. Now, we actually have photographs showing the light disruption to these other background areas around them that indicate gravity waves being emanated from these black holes that are merging. This is something that, to me, is long in coming, because now that we can see gravity waves, because keep in mind, of all the forces in the universe, the one force that we don't really know anything about other than to calculate its value and to use it in our equations to put people on the moon or Mars, robots on the Mars, and flying past Pluto, is gravity. We don't know anything about gravity. We just know it's there.
Right.
We know that.
If I remember correctly, isn't that the most longest acting force in the universe? Doesn't it transect the longest lines of distance? Is gravity?
Gravity is it's a weak force. Gravity is not considered a strong force. It's considered a very weak force. Now, nuclear forces can be strong, all right? But the thing is, gravity is a persistent force. And from the time of the Big Bang, gravity existed. So gravity is, at the very least, 13.8 billion years old, in its existence. Because the primordial superatom was held together by what? Was it wrapped in cloth? No. It was gravity holding it together. So gravity predated our universe in that sense. You follow?
Absolutely.
So if that's right, so if that's true, then it means that gravity is a fundamental force to be reckoned with in this universe. And if we can do something about getting around it or reflecting it somehow, remember, light is dual. It's a particle and it's a wave. It operates both ways. You have a photon of light, which is a little tiny light packet, and you have a wave of light, which is always characteristically and classically represented as a sine wave, going along. But these waves and particles of light suggest that perhaps they're not the only things that work that way. Maybe there's duality of state elsewhere in the universe. Maybe gravity works that way. We didn't know until we found gravity waves. So does that mean there's now gravitons, gravity particles that are yet to be discovered? And if so, geez, can we build a gravity reflector and thus achieve anti-gravity? See what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or orbit on the cheap, just turn off the gravity or reflect the gravity back and bounce. And it might take you 24 hours to get to orbit, but you do it free. The whole point is that we're on the cusp, I think.
Well, I just want to underline one of the things you just said. Yeah. It may take 24 hours to get to orbit, but you will get to orbit. Think of what that means, though, with the structure that you could put into space. That you can put into orbit.
We talk about the space.
You're no longer using
the space elevator, right?
Right. You're not using any harsh physics. Now you're using the ability of this weak but long-ranging force of gravity as a means to put large amounts of mass into orbit or into any kind of space, right?
I totally agree. Yeah, and see, I'm a big proponent of research in this arena, and I'll tell you why, because not only for just what you said, but, they talk about being able to use, say, a space elevator to move materials up into orbit. Well, the problem with that is that if you want the thing to stay over the same place on the Earth, it has to go out 22,000 miles. So it's in geosynchronous orbit. But wait, the Earth is going to be, it's going to be sitting over one place on the Earth, and that means there's going to be an incredible stress on that little tether going all the way out 22,000 miles, and there's no substance that we know of in the universe, probably not even graphene composites, that can actually withstand that kind of stress. So just like the Alcubierre drive, which is another concept which I absolutely love and that NASA's actually invested in, believe it or not, the warp drive concept is what that is. And so along with that, that elevator technology, if we did have anti-gravity, we wouldn't need to have an elevator, would we? Right. Unless we were going to have a general population living in orbit. And if we could have people living in orbit en route, say, to the moon as miners or as resource specialists that will then look at the moon and try to find the concentrations of titanium and other materials that will be great for building other structures out there in space, we would have a use for it. We could find a use for it. And having a negated gravity tether going up into orbit would be fantastic, because then we wouldn't have to worry, and you wouldn't want to cut it off altogether, because then it would just float free. Right. You'd want to bind it to the Earth, so you would have to actually have a little bit of gravity, that you're not reflecting, so you have just the most minuscule amount of gravity, enough to hold it to the planet, basically. And let's say, make it so that the gravity of the Earth will still hold it, and that's enough. That's the best way to say it. Make it gravitationally bound is the right term for, you want to keep it to the Earth. And that's something that, might be useful. So being able to just reflect gravity, that would change the face of everything, The other thing changing the face that changed the face of everything would be is if we figure out how atoms and molecules can be assembled into items that we desperately need. Now, we know how to build things. We know how to a process to make stuff. But, you see the Star Trek replicators, right? Tea, please, Earl Grey.
Right.
And boom, it comes out, right? In a cup, no less. Well, if you think about that, what is that? That's just an atomic assembler. It's got the raw material elements, the atoms sticking around, and it basically assembles them in the right order. Is that so far-fetched? If you think
I
about
don't
it,
think
is that
so.
really so far-fetched? No,
And
see,
the reason
I don't either.
The reason I don't think it is because when you look back, say, when Mr. Clark was writing his books and he talked about in the late 40s, early 50s, people talking, and they would have a handheld phone type device, and they could place a call to anywhere on the planet. And people said, "My God,
how silly is that?
This guy is such a forward thinker. Maybe in 2 or 3 centuries we'll have that capability. It's just amazing." And even Arthur C. Clarke, when he talked about it, said he didn't actually envision the satellite network being what it was at the time of his death. It was even beyond what he thought. But one of the questions, and I got to flip this on you a little bit, a lot of people say, well, it's because he wrote that. Is that what inspired people to put that network up? It's the chicken and egg situation, I guess, in that. But my point is, you're at 3D printing right now. We're at 3D printing in the military right now that spare parts will be produced on ships and bases, and we're going to no longer have to transport. The only thing we're going to have to take is raw materials or obtain raw materials when we get there, very much the way we take care of food right now, that you buy a lot of your food in the local theater or as much as you possibly can from local sources because it's less expensive and it's better and it has better nutrition. We're how close are we, Mark, to having the ability to make organs go forward with a 3D printer and creating,
if you think about it,
body parts?
I don't think it'll be 3D printed. I think that organs are going to be grown, but rapidly.
Right. Well, my point is, though,
based on
what I was getting at is when we talk about what you just talked about, this replicator, a la what we saw in the 60s. I saw it live in the 60s. Most of you saw it as reruns, unfortunately, that are in the chat room and listen to the show.
I was live too, unfortunately.
My point being, we have taken lots of steps in that direction already. And if you look at the way telegraph and radio functioned and how in between we had a cable, if you look at those logarithmic leaps in technology, I don't know what's going to be the thing that's going to crack the code to make this happen. But I think we're on that scale. The fact that you can't predict it finds me, or you can't envision it, I find surprising that people of any kind of technology don't see that. I think it's amazing that you would not be able to see that coming. Now,
I agree with you.
I'll be a good host. I'll be quiet.
No. I enjoyed that very much. I think you're absolutely right. And what I think is true is that I honestly don't think that our brains can actually think of anything that's patently impossible. Now, that's because almost everything that our brains have thought of has happened, has come true. We've been able to manufacture and engineer and build things that we could only imagine just decades ago. Now, fast forward us 2,000 years. At some point, we will reach a crisis with, energy and food. Okay, food includes water, and we will have to do something about it. What if doing something about it meant find a way to give us renewable energy? And we know all this. You hear all this before. And copious food. Well, the renewable energy would put us on the path toward type 1 status in the Kardashev scale of civilizations. There's type 1, type 2, type 3, and there's even type 4 and even 5 in the later renditions. But we're not even type 1 yet, which means a civilization that utilizes the energy of its star. Everything is renewable. And I believe it was Michio Kaku who said, we still burn dead things for our energy. And that's true. If you think about it, how sad is that? We burn dead things for all the fuel that drives everything on this planet. Now, sure, there's pockets of solar, there's pockets of wave and wind, but there's only pockets. It should be pockets of fossil fuels, pockets of nuclear fission reactors that are out there. They shouldn't; those should be the minimal things, but we're not there yet. That flip will occur as soon as we go past the break-even point in fusion. When we do that, then we're going to have freer energy for more of the planet. And energy can't be warred over because there will not be a war over something that's already free. And that's the big thing. And that'll lead us more to Type 1 status. And I'm sure that this progress, and Type 1 status is measured by the amount of energy that we utilize, and that would be the energy of our star that provides all that we need, plus wave action, plus wind and solar, everything like that. As soon as we reach that point where we can do that in a way that beautifies our planet, doesn't pollute our planet. I know I sound like a green tree-hugging type guy, but look, we might as well hug them. We might as well, embrace the fact that we live on a beautiful planet and try and protect it, right?
I think.
I'm not a.
No, I completely share your same enthusiasm, and I guess I want to make a quick tie-in. I had a guest on a couple of weeks back. Michael Schratt was on with us. He was talking about.
I know Michael. He's a great guy.
Yeah, Michael is a great guy, and Michael. I put the question to Michael as he was talking about the triangle aircraft. The ones that he's done a lot of research on, what he believes they work, and he takes, like you, he takes a very scientific approach and a very pragmatic approach to proving what it is. And I asked him, so, well, if we have these aircraft, and I completely am convinced they are, my own personal experience, nothing I was ever briefed on or I had anything to do, I would be straight up with the audience on that. But I did see results in combat that made me believe that those aircraft were in existence, or some form of it was. If we have that ability and this ability to do these things with these advanced drives, why are we still producing fuel-burning jet aircraft, fighters and transports and bombers? Why are we doing that? Why are we still having our troops ride around in the battlefield with helicopters that average 90 to 95 knots, and they're very vulnerable? I spent a lot of my test flying career working on aircraft that in the rotary wing world would go 3 times that speed, and was considered a huge breakthrough to have that go forward. And his answer to me, right between the eyes, was, well, it's the military defense complex that we're fighting against, and until there's a huge shift or a change there, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
And I think you're alluding to the same exact thing. Electricity, Tesla wanted electricity to be free. He wanted it to be produced in huge amounts. Okay, another guest that was on, the rings, the way they were on earlier, and they spoke about the breakthroughs that he had experienced and what he believes is at the near palatable. He thinks it's going to break through sometime in 18 in those same area. Ralph and Marsha Ring. Again, the same point keeps coming up, that we can't, until we are able to throw off the yoke that we have on our shoulders right now, we are still going to continue to plow. I don't care how fancy you make it. We're still plowing. We're not breaking into the next era.
Yeah, I totally buy that. And you got to remember too, right? I mean, and I'm sure Michael talked about, the when you're talking about the military-industrial complex, people are making money off the current status, the current state of things. So there's very powerful lobbies to keep that in place. There's a few things that I've seen that boggle the mind, but I know were man-made things. Okay, human-made things.
Right.
One was I worked on a project that was, of course, under wraps, and it was a project for the Navy, and it was out in a lake in Idaho, Lake Pend Oreille, as a matter of fact.
Deepest lake in the world, if I remember correctly.
And well, I don't know if it's in the world, actually. You might be right, but it's very deep.
And it's a very interesting place, way in the mountains, so far away from the ocean, with no other water connection, that the Navy has a base there. But it's a very interesting subbase.
That's correct. That's correct. They actually have what's called it's called the Intermediate Scale Measurement System, and they use it. And my job as a model maker was to actually build a cube of water model showing the whole facility from surface to the bottom. It was wonderful. It was 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. It was wonderful. I love working on that thing.
That must have been actually pretty.
And I have a laser cutter, and I was actually Oh, I was laser cutting to town to make the thing. It was wonderful. I made 3 of them. Well, anyway, they also test other things there. One of the things they tested was a craft that got reported as a UFO. And in fact, it kept getting reported as a UFO to the point where I was getting calls and people were saying, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? You got to tell us what this is. They didn't know I knew anything about it, but I knew exactly what it was. It's something now that's public. It's called the MPUAV, but it's also known by its public name now, Project Cormoran, like the bird.
Right.
Project Cormoran, funded by Lockheed. And basically, just imagine a vehicle that comes out of a submarine, missile tube, goes up to the surface, opens up its wings, takes off from the water like the flying sub from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, does a mission, comes back, lands in the water, folds up its wings, and dives down underwater again like a submarine and puts itself back into the same missile tube it left from and goes home. That's the technology that we had, and that was 6 years ago. All right, and I asked the program office to give me a statement so I could tell people that this is actually a human-made thing. And basically they said, tell them nothing. I said, well, if I tell them nothing, then you're going to get the speculation. Then you're going to get the guys with the cameras. Then you're going to get people, sneaking around. Do you want that? I had a statement within a few days. Okay. And I gave a statement. I told folks, oh, see, it's a Navy developed system, nothing more. And the excitement died down. And then the project went mainstream, So, I mean, things like that happen where they are. And it's like to Strat's point. We do have things. We do have developments. We are very, very clever beings. And we create some very funny things and very cool things and very oddly operated things, all right? But the thing is, when we're talking about aliens and we're talking about, say, extraterrestrial life, all right? Now, in astronomy, my specialty is exoplanets. Those are planets around other stars. I know what we have in this galaxy alone of between 100 and 400 billion stars. I know that we may have between 10 and 40 billion habitable planets in this galaxy. That means planets that we could survive on, and more or less. Might need a fur parka for a few of them, but the bottom line is that if we have that that knowledge now, and we came along 2/3 of the way into the universe's beginning. I mean, we're only 4.5 billion years old. The universe is 13.8. How many civilizations could have come and gone before we even existed, before Earth was even formed in the solar nebula with the sun? So it goes on. And so it really does boggle the mind. And then you just think about the military, and you get this little tunnel vision saying, well, the military is working on this little project. But I'm thinking, but wait, what about the people or the beings that are visiting us perhaps from distant stars? And maybe they have been for centuries, for millions of years, for all we know. Maybe we're their progeny and we don't even know it. So you could boggle your mind. So what I do is I focus on what we do know, the science of what we know, because I know that our science is wrong. If you go in knowing your science is wrong, then you're okay, because you won't make any mistakes that you can't undo. You'll make mistakes, but won't make mistakes you can't undo. And so knowing that we have that kind of thing going on, I would suspect that there's a lot of people out there that would be very interested to hear about the real prospects for extraterrestrial, as in more highly advanced life forms out there, than whether the military is building a new craft that's going to, be mistaken for a UFO. A UFO is just a craft from another alien species, right? That's all it is. We've got one, Voyager, left the solar system.
We're motoring up to our next break, so I'm going to jump in here real quick and say, you just highlighted another issue that has come up numerous times on this show and, of course, across KGRA programming. When you talked and you say, look, what can I release about this vehicle since it's going mainstream? Let it go with it. The use of disinformation and the use of people pointing at everything and saying, that is extraterrestrial, I saw it fly by, that is free security in a very screwed up way in my mind. In a very incorrect application of it. There are things in my understanding that need to be secret, need to be kept secret, that to protect people that and lives and investments, and you don't want to show your hand before that. But when you get to the spot
Right.
you were just pointing out, that just tells me that we still have the same policy or the same procedure in effect. Allow the disinformation, drive the disinformation, so that it's constantly, we never get to the truth. And the problem with that is it collapses on itself, and you never get to the spot where you're supposed to be going. You can't get out of literally burning fossil fuels and doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. I believe Einstein's the one that pushed this. Okay, folks, we're headed to our next break here. This is Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio. Outstanding guest, stellar, to use the pun. Would that be is that reaching too much?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I won't take too many points off for that one.
Oh, thank you. And if I even spell it right in the chat room, I'll probably even get a little extra points. So Mark D'Antonio is with us tonight. Unbelievable. I mean, if you don't listen to anything so far out of it, listen to this half hour, because the stuff that he packed in this particular section was unbelievable. I have lots of questions, lots of notes. We're motoring up to the top. We're going to pick this up on the backside. Talk to you in about 3 minutes.
And hello to everybody on YouTube. You're listening to a replay of Task Force Griffin with host Commander Cobra, and his guest was Mark D'Antonio. You could also check out Mark's stream at Sky Tour Livestream on YouTube, as well as our shared site, astroimaginglive.com, where you'll find Sky Tour Livestream with Mark, P&K Space Imaging, and myself. So you can go there. There's a chat room. You can see there's times when all three of us are streaming at one time. You can go there and you can see all the action on one site, and that's astroimaginglive.com. So we're going to continue with the show in about 3 minutes once the commercial break is done. Before that, I want to say hello to everybody that's on YouTube, that's watching, or in the YouTube chat. And while we have a little break here, we'll do a shout out to everybody on YouTube. And there was a lot of activity the last hour. Seems to have waned a little bit, but it's still early. It's only 11:40 Eastern time, and we should see some activity tonight. I would say probably picking up after midnight, really say 1 or 2 a.m. till the sun rises. If the weather cooperates, I'm settled in. I'm ready to go till 5 a.m. So we will give it our best shot, see what we get, see if the skies cooperate and stays clear. There is a system to the west. Hopefully it just holds off till tomorrow, and it stays clear for the remainder of the evening. So I'm going to get back to the show. I'll fast forward a little bit, and before I do that, I will say hello to Carmen and Mauricio in California, C&D Boy in Canada, Danny Jackson, Daryl in Colorado, D in Canada, Duplicat, Kathy in Pennsylvania, Sarah in Texas, Mark in Connecticut, and Mark D'Antonio is chilling with us, and you're listening to Mark as we speak on the stream. And if you want to ask Mark any questions, he's in the chat room right now, so jump in there, and Mark will address any questions you have, as long as you don't bring up Flat Earth, fake moon landings, etc. Please don't come in there, because we'll time you out. Or you'll get the eh. And I know D gets a kick out of that. Especially when we play Family Feud on a live Skywatch. And chat wins. Chat wins! All right. And hello to James Small, Duplicat, Sarah Fezio. Check out her channel. Sarah Fezio, incredible artwork. Sarah, and Fezio, Fezio, on YouTube. Hello to Star in Utah, Ted Bronson, Tony the Night Owl, and Ufi somewhere out there in Paris. All right, so let's get back to the show. All right, it's still got the commercial going on. Let's skip it a little bit. Let's give it a little skip.
There was obviously...
Gotta go back a little. Gotta go back.
Being aware or about
the new word. bloated. You can get it today. Log on to getthetea.com.
Your official contact for the best alternative talk on the planet. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio. Commander Cobra here. Very lucky to have Mark D'Antonio with us. Again, I can only stress to you that if you could only hear the off-air show portion of it, why the great commercial messages are being played, it's almost as good to be its own show, its own little interdimensional intersection of three very interesting personalities.
Teasing these folks, guys. You know, I mean, you're teasing these people. You know, it's like you got to give them something now. You got to give them something. You got to tell them something about what we were talking about.
We did discuss the fact that Skywatcher is most likely my sorority sister. So we'll leave it at that. We'll see how that works out in the chat room. Let that go, and we'll work backwards. All right, Mark, pick it up where we were pressing into this intersection of capitalism and our show, where we left off.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where that was, because that was a whole 3 minutes ago.
I know, and the last 20, 30 seconds in between was probably driving you. What we were working on, what we were talking about, was the kind of the disinformation cover that's gone on, linking back to discussing that, look, you know, we've talked about covering the kind of approach that you want to have an open imagination. You want to be surprised. You don't want to go with a conclusion of what you're looking for in your scientific part. And we've covered that. And the parts that you have explained of where we are and how things like the space elevator could work and where we're headed to, all this came from your discussion about becoming aware, or at least recognizing, when we went back to this paranormal kind of connection. That's what led us to the point where we're at. So off air, we were talking about, I asked you, or I postulated, do you think it was because of the various medical procedures you had that gave you this awareness or this recognition of there? Do you think it was always there? And the reason I brought that up is because many of the great saints of Christianity, a number of the great philosophers of all cultures, many of them had these kinds of experiences where they saw and spoke about things. If you go back to the Bible, the book that we don't teach anymore, it's full of people that have these kinds of experiences and these interactions, these mainly, I would say, for the betterment of mankind. At least that's the viewpoint I've taken personally. Not so much in vogue right now. What do you think? Do you think it's a combination? Where do you think this came from? Or are you just don't care and you're happy to have this and you're excited to have this ability to interact this way? That's a loaded question.
It's a really loaded question.
Way. It's
I get you.
It's got a lot of dimensions. I thought you could handle it. Okay?
Very good, very good dimensions. You snuck that in there. I caught it. Here's the thing. You hear the old adage, it's a blessing, it's a curse. It's a gift, it's a curse. Well, I had to take medication to get rid of the stuff that's in my way all the time. It's like in my way. That's the best way to put it. The stuff that gets in the way. And people say, wow, I wish I had that. No, you don't. Okay? I don't want it. I mean, I recognize that it's there, and I recognize that it showed up after the brain surgery, but like literally a decade and a half after the brain surgery is when it showed up. So why then? I don't understand that, and so I can only loosely connect it to the only big thing that happened, and it was that. So I don't know, but I do know that when you look at history and people that make all these claims or whatever, certainly some of those people made those claims for personal, to get personal adulation by the masses. There was obviously, it was a simpler time. You didn't have to justify everything you said with a YouTube video or a Google search, of a scientific document. Nowadays, though, that's what I insist on. I insist that people, when they want to talk about something that they've experienced, I want to see it in a very pragmatic way. I want to actually see evidence that this stuff happens. I don't know why I saw and still see these things that I see. Is it a flaw? Maybe it's a flaw. Maybe it's a problem with my human form. That I'm made up of.
And I want to make sure I cast this correctly as I say this, because I think that these so-called imperfections or departures from what we would say is the standard. I'm not going to say normalcy. I'm going to say the standard. I just finished a book from a friend of mine, excellent book, and in it he has a character that suffers from Asperger's. The character can function, but because of his analytical ability, this person is able to create computer code and can see it in dimensions that average people can't. Now, he can't look people straight in the eye, and he has a very difficulty. And the only place that he feels, as he describes the character, is in this. But this kid has no problem embracing this once he realizes where he's at. And I think that is partially what you may be talking about here. I'm going to put you on point just a little bit. What is your belief system for God as an astronomer, as a scientist? I don't mean to delve too deep into it personally, but what is your belief factor?
No, I actually have. There's no taboo subjects with me. I take all comers. If they want to ask me a question, I'm totally open about it. I mean, I'm an open book. I don't have anything to hide, and I don't hide things like that.
I don't know if that's been demonstrated in the previous hour or so that we've had the program. That may be a claim that we can't substantiate based on Task Force Griffin tonight of your openness. I'm not sure if that is true. That's a joke. I
think that is what we call sarcasm.
A scientist. This is what happens when you deal with scientists. They pick up on all this stuff.
No.
I was a math major, if you couldn't tell. So you know what scientists think about math.
You fly. You're a very analytical guy. You have to be able to do that on the fly, so to speak. So I think that's important. But the thing to keep in mind here is that, when I look at everything that's going on with the world, when I look at how I interact with the world, I see. I'm 56 years old now, so that's why I could remember Star Trek when it was live.
So you and I are the same age. We've got that established.
I remember watching The Trouble with Tribbles the first time it came out, and all the episodes previous. Tribbles was like third season, first episode or something.
Right.
Well, anyway, something like
pregnant.
that. Well, anyway, not that I know anything about Star Trek, but I say that because the technology is demonstrated in that show. Humans reaching for something, and they weren't reaching for they were reaching for the stars, okay, but they weren't reaching for the universe. They were reaching for a ship that is fallible, has fallible people running it. The ship could actually make its way to the stars, but it could be destroyed, it could be damaged, okay? And every type of being that we met in the universe, Star Trek universe, wasn't necessarily friendly. But they preached, a benevolence that the human race would have at a certain point. Okay, hence the way in the episode with the Gorn, okay, the Gorn lizard creature, Shatner ended. That episode ended where the Gorn wasn't destroyed, and so forth, and Shatner convinced the aliens not to kill him or whatever. So, see that kind of benevolence is something that's actually rubbed off. So, we say art imitates life, life imitates art, okay? Well, in some cases, art starts it and life imitates it. And in other cases, we start it and then a movie's made about it, right? So when we look at Star Trek, for instance, and I use Star Trek a lot as a basis of understanding because it's important to follow where it's going, okay? We look at Star Trek as a reflection of what we believe and what we want to believe, all right? And so the technology that Gene Roddenberry came up with in that show, that series, wasn't entirely out of his own mind, fanciful, just creations from his mind. These were based on some, having talks with people who understood science and gave him a perspective on where we might be someday. So that's why Warp Drive was born. And then when you say, wow, we actually have NASA investigating what's called a warp drive. How coincidental? No coincidence. Okay, it's because the concept has always been there. Miguel Alcubierre, he worked it out in '94, and it required the energy of the planet Jupiter converted to energy from its mass. So it was stupendously impossible to achieve, and became a thought problem. For instance, now a rework of his ship design by a different group had brought that energy down by 10 to the 26 power, meaning it went from having to be the mass of Jupiter converted to energy to make this warp bubble around the ship to the mass of something like the Voyager spacecraft converted to energy to make a bubble around the ship.
Right.
This brings it to within our reach, in a sense. It's still a couple hundred years away, but NASA's got a lab working on it now. They didn't before. So we're making progress. Now, why is that important? It's important because a few years ago, in 2012, I believe, when Tabitha Boyajian was looking at a little star in the constellation Cygnus, she noticed that the star was dimming. This was Kepler data, the Kepler Space Telescope data, which studies transits of stars, the dimming of light as the planets pass in front of them relative to us. And that dimming of the light, she noticed around this particular star, but it kept going. It kept getting dimmer. And when she looked at the record, she said, wow, this star is dimming by up to 20. And then they discovered that it wasn't just dimming for the period of the Kepler data program. It was dimming for over 100 years, going back to historical records. So now they're looking at the possibility. That's where this whole alien megastructure thing came up, right?
Right.
Now, what's an alien megastructure mean to us? Well, nothing. It just means that it may be a structure being built by another race. That means something, but the fact that it could be some kind of alien megastructure is not on the table, really, for a lot of scientists. But I'll tell you this. It is for Tabitha, okay? And it is for a bunch of astronomers who think, well, maybe we're seeing the actual first indication of somebody building, and you know the term, the Dyson sphere around their star to extract all the energy by encapsulating the star, not in a sphere, because that would be literally impractical from an elemental and periodic table, strength of elements perspective, but from maybe a swarm of satellites that are put around the star that beam energy to the planet. And if they kept putting more and more and more and more satellites around their star, then over time, that light from the star would dim, wouldn't it? Now, they tried to say, well, maybe it was a swarm of comets. Maybe it was a planetary collision. Maybe it's an asteroid belt. Except those things change. They come and go. But when you see something start to dim and then it doesn't change and then it starts to dim again, like this past May, when Tabby's star started to dim again, what does that mean? Isn't that exciting? That is something we got to figure out, because all natural explanations fail. So now we're pushed to our limit. Our brains are working in overdrive trying to figure out, well, wait a minute. If Tabby's star isn't naturally dimming, then that means that the star itself doesn't have any odd quirks. That means there's no comets, no asteroids, no planetary collisions, because this thing has been dimming for over 100 years now. So what does it mean? There's only one thing left, and well, there's a few things left, but one primary thing left is now we have to look for any residue that we can catch that shows an advanced species at work, and that could be in the form of heat. And you know that in 2018, the James Webb telescope goes up. And the James Webb telescope is going to look where? At Tabby's star. It's going to be that's on the program. So it's going to look at that and try and figure out if there's some type of residual infrared energy, heat coming from it that would be missed if you're taking a photograph of the star. You'd see it with the infrared, and maybe we might see a hazy halo of infrared around the star. And if that's what we see, then we know that a swarm of Dyson satellites, this Dyson swarm, as envisioned by Freeman Dyson, was put up there, perhaps. So, this is really a fun time. It's an exciting time, and I'm always looking off the Earth, to find evidence off the Earth, even though I pretty much have an idea that there are visitors here and have been here. But we have to find them off the Earth, because they did that also, or they would not be here. They found us from a distance first, and then they came here. Well, we're going to do the same thing, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that another kind of theme that was well portrayed in Star Trek about when they would look back at Earth and they figured out how to do their time travel, and they were studying how we got through it. There was an interesting point there, a lot of sociological input there, and then how they interacted and acted, the decisions they made at different points. Roddenberry was a very, very interesting man. World War II pilot. He actually also worked as an airline pilot. If I got the story correct, he survived a crash landing and led a number of the passengers survived in a desert in the edge of Syria, led them out successfully. He has quite an interesting background. And again, I find folks like yourself, many people that are challenged or have some kind of significant event. I don't know how else to describe it. Tune in to these capabilities that they have. A guest I had on not too long ago, Otto Hannibal, A-10 pilot, B-2 pilot, Predator pilot, now writing a very successful series of books. He explained his synesthesia very, very well and how highly developed he has it on there. And when he first started to experience it, much like you were talking about, he was afraid to bring it up because he thought there may be something wrong, and he surely thought this is not going to work out real well if I start explaining to people what I'm experiencing. Very, very common. Okay, I got to work on some questions. We're going to have a very, very busy last block. So as we're pressing down, let me run a couple quick questions because I think you're going to have a lot to add to this. I want you to give me some takes on what you think of the secret space program, where you think that is at with our vehicles' capabilities, and maybe pop in a quick comment about the new 6th armed service that is being proposed.
The Space Marines?
Yeah, Space Corps.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, no, not Space Marines, not yet. No, that was a different show that we watched. That came on.
Starship Troopers. Well, as far as the secret space program, we know there are secrets. Okay, and here's what you start by saying the things you know. We know there are secrets kept from the public. How do I know? Well, I've kept them. You've kept them.
Sure.
Okay, because that was our work. Now, are those secrets things that have some far-reaching meaning? Maybe. I was on a submarine as a guest of the Navy for doing a cool project they liked, and they said, hey, would you like to go for a ride? And it was the most fun I had being seasick, honestly. And while on that ride, I was trying to quell my stomach, okay, and I will get to the secret space program because it relates. And while I was in the sonar shack just trying to, quell my stomach to the sound of the rhythmic humming of the sub, because it's very loud in a sub. People think it's so quiet. It's actually very loud, but the sound just doesn't get out. That's the whole point. And I was sitting there, and I was starting to feel a little better, when all of a sudden I heard the sonar kid, he's probably, 20, 22 years old or whatever, he yells to the executive officer, he yells, con sonar, fast mover, fast mover. Now, I thought that was a torpedo. We're in the North Atlantic. I thought it was a torpedo. And to me, that meant, oh, great, I went for a ride, I'm going to freaking die out here. Somebody shot a freaking torpedo at us. And I'm all, adrenaline's running, seasick. I've never even thought of it now. It's like seasickness is gone. The XO comes around the corner, he talks to the kid. Now, as I said, there's a lot of ambient noise. Just imagine 3 or 4 fans, big loud fans running around you, and someone having a moderate tone conversation near you. You'd have to lean in to hear them. So I leaned as much as I dared, because obviously if it was a classified conversation, it doesn't matter if you have a clearance. You can't listen on your own if you want to. You have to be briefed in and invited. Well, anyway, I heard him telling the XO the parameters. He was pointing at the waterfall display, saying what he saw, which is the sonar, display. And he looked at a line on there and was pointing to the commander, to the XO, and pointing to the screen and with his outstretched hands, like, what do I do? And the XO says, well, how fast is it going? I heard that. And I heard the kid, he didn't even look at the screen. He just said to the XO, he says, it's several hundred knots. And he just froze, looking at the XO, what do I do? Hands out. What do I do? He's never seen this. Obviously, he was totally stunned. And the XO just looked at him and kind of did the thing with his lips where he kind of pushes them together really hard, and then he goes, log it and dog it. And he goes, Yes, sir. And that means, log it and then hide it. And so fast forward a few years later, okay, I had a job to do for the Joint Chiefs, and I had made friends with the vice chair, and he invited me to come down and spend time with him and bring the project down. So I brought it down, and I asked him a question about this. I said, what can you tell me about the Fast Mover program? And he looked at me and he goes, I can't talk about that program, I'm sorry. And it was like, wow, I can't believe I just heard that.
Bingo.
By saying nothing, he said everything.
Right.
That kind of thing. So naturally, when I was driving back from Washington that day, I was almost careening off the road and just trying to think about all that transpired. So this relates to the secret space program. Why? It seems to be underwater. Who cares? What's that have to do with anything? Well, it has to do with this. It has to do with the fact that there are apparently things, beings, creatures, entities operating in our atmosphere on our planet that do so in a clandestine manner that we have no control over. All the Navy can do, for instance, as I witnessed, is log it and dog it. Put it aside, stick it in the program log, and just then, forget about it. They can't do anything to it, and they can't do anything with it. So it's basically like an information gathering thing. So the secret space program is probably a very similar thing to me, anyway, as the way I've been thinking about it. I think that maybe it's just a way to keep tabs on the potential. And I'm sure, and I know that not everybody, for instance, in the Navy believes that such things are extraterrestrial in nature, operating in our seas underwater at high speed. But no one thinks that they're Russians, and no one thinks that they're Chinese. No one thinks that they're North Korean. Okay, they're thinking that there's something other than human. Could they be biological? And that's the other thing too. He actually instructed the kid to check the other sonar that I was sitting in front of, and the kid leaned over and said, "Excuse me, sir," and he looked at the trail that was on my sonar, and I don't read the sonar, so I didn't know. And he says, "Yeah, it's on this sonar too," and so it wasn't a machine anomaly. In other words, it wasn't an error on the machine. So to me, secret space program is probably going down that vein. It's probably something where we're actually, trying to keep tabs on something that may or may not be occurring. Maybe, you got to understand too, it could very likely all be the result of a fear that's unfounded. If there's nobody here, if there's no creatures here, if there's no beings here from anywhere else, then it's not out of the question that we might panic into thinking there is, based on all the popular culture, and create a program to monitor it. But I don't believe that myself. I think that my experience has been that there's things here that I don't have any control over, and so it might very well be that we are sitting here on the cusp of getting a Space Corps. Now ostensibly on the surface, the Space Corps is for monitoring and managing certain satellites, and that could be entirely all it's about. But they're going to have in their purview additional tasks. There'll be additional tasking that isn't public, that we won't know about. So what is that? I don't know. Do we want to know? Probably, it'd be nice to know, but as long as it's something to, keep us safe in a way that's not going to get us blown up by an alien race, if that's what it is, then, go for it, and don't tell me I'm all right with that. But I don't want anyone speaking for the human race, at the point of a gun, for instance.
Well, I think there's two parts. I think you very well illustrated both parts of the conversation. So I'm going to take us to our last break, and then we're going to fire out some questions. But on the secret space program, there's two halves to this. One is we no longer have a shuttle. We're using Russian rockets to get us up to the International Space Station, and most of us are convinced that there is another activity that is going on that still gives us the capability, and some of the craft, some of the things that are seen, is probably those vehicles, our space planes that are out there. And we know that some of those capabilities are there. And it explains a lot when you fall into the timeline of other aircraft that have come and gone and other guests we've had on the show. And then we have the other project you're talking about. This is part and parcel with we are dealing with observations and phenomena that go forward. So we have that there. Your quick answer to who would you like to run this? Would you like to see the Air Force run it or the Navy run it? And I'll give you my take since I've got time in almost all the services.
Well, to be honest with you, if it's something that's in the atmosphere, then it's probably the Air Force. If it's something that's in the ocean, it should probably be the Navy. I mean, the right person, the right group has to run it.
Okay, so I'm going to start out as Air Force pilot, Coast Guard pilot, and I worked extensively with the Navy and the Marines throughout my career on both sides of that.
You want to run it, don't you? Come on,
no,
be honest.
I just want to fly it. Don't
okay, you want to fly it?
I just want to fly these things. That's
cool.
all I want to do. I'm like that guy in Independence.
Yeah. He just backed into the hangar.
I just want, bang it around, and I want to take it over
back into the hangar. Don't laugh.
Don't laugh. He's really sensitive about that. I would say that if you go back to Star Trek, and this is what we'll close as we drive into our last break for the evening, Star Trek followed a Navy protocol. Captains, admiralties on that because of the way that they did their things with the ships and the tradition that went with it. If you remember, anytime they had any kind of a court-martial over hearing it, they followed all the same procedures right down to ringing the bell. I think that if you do create a Space Corps, a space program out there, if it's already out there, I think it's going to be like a lot of the other black projects and special projects go on. You're going to have the most talented of a number of the services. And I think the example out there that's going to probably be followed is the Joint Special Operations Command, which takes and draws from all the different aspects of the military branches and, to some extent, the other government agencies like Department of State and those kinds of folks that are involved. So I think that is...
As long as it's not a guy in a tie. If it's a guy in a tie, we're sunk.
Yeah. I would, if nothing else, if you're doing that, I would hope it to be open button at the top if you're wearing the coat. But that's just me. All right, folks, you are listening to Task Force Griffin. We are very lucky to have Mark D'Antonio on board with us tonight. We're going to blast through our commercial break, and we're going to rapid fire some of your questions that I've been writing down. I'm through like 5 sheets of paper here. Back in a couple.
Awesome.
All right. So you're listening to a replay of Commander Cobra's show, Task Force Griffin, and the guest was Mark D'Antonio, who happens to be in chat right now. So with his knowledge base in astronomy, if anybody wants to come into the YouTube chat and ask Mark some questions, I'm sure he'd be willing to take some as long as you keep them somewhat reasonable. All right. Before we get back to the show, let's say a quick shout out to those that are in YouTube chat and everybody. Hello to everybody that's watching on YouTube, wherever you may be. It is 12:10 Eastern Time here in upstate New York. Hopefully we're going to get some activity soon, and I'm planning to stream till the sun rises, so probably 5 a.m. Sunrise is actually at 6, but the lighting in the sky, you figure by 5 a.m. we'll call it. So I'm planning to stream another 5 hours. All right. Shout out time to the YouTube chat room. Hello to Andy and CND, Craze Gaming, Daryl, Amanda, Dope Zubezi, Duplicat, Jeffrey, Kathy, Sarah, Mark D'Antonio, of course, TD, Ted Bronson, Tony the Night Owl, and Wingman. So in a couple of minutes, we'll get back to the show. Matter of fact, I'll fast forward the commercials here. And let's see where we're at.
RARadio.com.
And here we come back.
Welcome to Task Force Griffin tonight. Mark D'Antonio is my guest on KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. Once again, we have had another crushing off-air segment where our favorite Skywatcher is probably now administering CPR to himself as we played games with him right up to the last possible second as we came on the air.
I think the last quarter second, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was a gasp as
you only had a quarter second
down as we were playing that. We'll pay for this at some point, but it's been a great fun on and off.
I'll pay for it. You're going to go on and on. I'm just going to pay for it myself, but it's okay.
All right. Here we go. I'm gonna rapid fire out some stuff. I want to get some pieces in, get the last questions that pop up. Observations and comments about the eclipse coming up in August of this year.
I'm gonna hopefully be in Nashville to see it. We're gonna hopefully be. In fact, Skywatcher is gonna be with us, and we're gonna be hopefully at the top of a skyscraper in Nashville. With permission to actually photograph and videotape this eclipse. So it'll be fun. And it's going to go right through Nashville, actually, right through the center.
I had a question concerning the eclipse. Will it affect navigation? My experience with eclipses that they do not. Solar storms that we go through on a much more frequent basis actually screw us over.
Yeah, those have a much higher chance because those monkey with GPS satellites. And, GPS positional satellites, okay, GPS is available anywhere in the world. An eclipse won't change that because the moon is farther away than any of the satellites by far. So GPS will be online just fine. Won't monkey with that at all. But as you say, when solar storms occur, they cause the particles, the charged particles in the solar storms actually cause the atmosphere to kind of grow in size a little bit. That's a way to put it that people see and follow. And when that does happen, it puts drag on the satellites, and it also induces electrical charge in the satellites themselves, sometimes really messing them up, and they have to be rebooted or stopped or, in some cases, boosted to a higher orbit because the atmospheric drag.
It's a very strange EMI as well. Believe it or not, going back in the 80s in my first parts of my special ops days, that was actually something we tracked with all the other weather for operations because the radios and the networks became very, very susceptible. And we had to come up with ways to back it up, and we had to know, how we were going to continue to move information. Or, in many cases, you just didn't make the call. You did it with no communications because you just knew it was going to be part of the thing that you're just dealing with.
No, you just use ELF. You might have used ELF communications. I mean,
that's for different folks and different types of airplanes. I never had the ability to use the ELF network very well. Although I trained a lot of guys and gals that went to do the flying of those aircraft, the TACMO aircraft. Okay, Pluto. What's your stand on Pluto? Really, I should have brought this. This should have come out right after the God question to get your credentials.
Dwarf planet?
Yeah, is it a planet or not a planet? This is a very serious question in the House of Task Force Griffin. There's definite sides drawn. There's very few agnostics on this.
Yeah,
either with it or not.
Well, I met Clyde Tombaugh, who's the guy that found Pluto, and we sat on a rocky knoll up in Vermont where we were at an astronomy convention together.
This doesn't sound like it's going to be a yes, it's a planet. No, it's not a planet. This is sounding like a long story to a short answer.
No, I'm going to answer that. I'm going to answer. My feeling is no.
I don't want to be unkind. I have a very good rapport with most of my guests. I can see the Pluto thing is going to get sensitive. Fine. This could be a very sensitive one, I see.
No, it's not. It's not to me. And here's why. Pluto has an inclination to all the rest of the planets. It's angled. It's a higher angled elliptical orbit than the others. It's likely Pluto is a captured Kuiper belt object, meaning Kuiper, K-U-I-P-E-R. The Kuiper belt is beyond Neptune, beyond 30 astronomical units, which is 93 million miles times 30. Okay, so it's far away. And there's a whole host of objects out there. And one of those objects that was finally established to be out there, and all the details aren't in yet, is a fairly large planet out there that is bigger than Pluto, but is what is going to be called Planet 9. And it's actually out there in the Kuiper belt. Okay, now Pluto, because of the oddities, until they figured out the orbit for Pluto, they were not really comfortable with it being a planet ever. But the fact is, it was more. It's a captured Kuiper belt object, most likely, as I said. And those are called trans-Neptunian objects, objects that are far beyond or just beyond Neptune. And we want to have Pluto in our solar system. We want 9 planets. Actually, I want 12 planets. That's kind of a nice number. But
a dozen always, you can never go wrong with a dozen, ever.
An even dozen. I'll even settle for a baker's dozen, okay, which is, what, 11 or something?
Actually, it's 13.
Or something like that. But anyway, oh, is it 13? Okay, sorry, I was the wrong way. I'm an astronomer, not a baker. But the bottom line is that there is objects out there in the Kuiper Belt that we haven't even found yet. And no, I'm not talking about Planet X, that is Nibiru. We don't have a planet hurtling toward us that's monkeying with earthquakes and magnetic fields on our planet. That's actually, laughable. Okay, and I hate to say it that way, but people don't understand that. Magnetic fields, the intensity of a magnetic field falls off by the cube of the distance away from an object. So it falls off faster than gravity does. It falls off faster than light does. All right. So when a magnetic field falls off, if there's something out by, say, Saturn, the magnetic field won't be felt here on Earth. It might be felt when it got a little closer, but then it would be very, very visible, and we would see it in our sky, and we would know that the impending doom was upon us or something. But I think that Pluto is probably properly classified as a dwarf planet, even though it has 5 moons of its own. And for a long time I said, well, look, it has 5 moons. And then I had one astronomer say to me, yeah, but there's probably a bunch of asteroids and TNOs that have moons as well. And I went, well, I guess that's true. We only have one template. We only have Pluto as a TNO, a trans-Neptunian object to go by. So maybe you're right. So I'm okay with the demotion to dwarf planethood for Pluto. Not happy about it, but I'm okay with it because I understand there are bigger objects out there in the Kuiper Belt that we've already begun to find. So maybe calling Pluto a planet was just a little bit getting ahead of ourselves there.
All right, so I just want to make sure I understood this. Planet 9 is in the Kuiper Belt, and you're telling me that it is part of our solar system and that it makes an orbit. Is that correct?
Yeah, anything out in the Kuiper Belt and even the Oort cloud beyond, is something that is in an orbit around our sun. So that's not a problem. But you see, I think that a 9th planet out there. I mean, again, what constitutes a planet? I mean, a certain size and so forth. It doesn't really matter where its place is. It doesn't matter if it's in the Kuiper Belt, but it's definitely a larger body out there. So I suspect that we can, if we do have a planet out there, then we will have to add it to the solar system.
Okay. All right. I think it's that's a very interesting piece. Also, I would like to say 2 things that came to mind. When you said Kuiper, the joke on the tip of my tongue was to make something about I like Kuipers on my salmon. And Ed Wood, the great movie Planet 9 Solution for Planet 9. I can't believe that Ed Wood actually had the.
You mean had Plan 9 from outer space?
Yeah, Plan 9 from outer space.
Yeah, that wasn't Planet 9. It was Plan 9.
All right, you obviously you're not giving me. All right, so we're even now. We've closed that up.
Something.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No. I was just.
By the way, Planet 9 might actually be even farther than the Kuiper Belt. Just so you know, I mean, it's not. It could be in the Kuiper Belt, but it could also be beyond the Kuiper Belt. They're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. They're trying to get the orbital characteristics down, but there is definitely something there. Okay.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You're going out to the Devil's Tower. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm going to do I got to go to that conference in September and do a talk there, and then Leominster in October. So yeah, and I just got back from Roswell, New Mexico, where I did the Roswell Incident Conference. But yeah, I'll be at Devil's Tower.
So what was your connection to the movie?
Well, the only connection I have to the movie is that Doug Trumbull did the special effects for it, and I work with Doug. So. Yeah, Doug and Spielberg, that's where Doug met Jacques Vallée, and Doug and Jacques Vallée are very good friends. And Doug and I I convinced Doug to come with me to Arizona to do a joint talk. He was going to talk about movies and how they affect the UFO community and belief systems, and I was going to talk about exoplanets and how science has brought UFOs more into the mainstream, the possibility of UFOs more into the mainstream. So we did the joint talk. It went very well, and then Doug and I spent a couple days with Jacques Vallée. I got to meet the guy. I never met him before. Very nice guy.
Yeah, it just seems like a great guy.
Yeah, and then he offered to help us on our project. We have a UFO hunting instrumentation that we're building called UFOTOG 2, UFOTOG 2.
And as I understand that, your UFOTOG really knows no limits, air and sea, correct?
I do have a design for the sea, but we're going to focus on the land. Doing land and sea was sort of biting off more than I could chew, as it turned out. But I actually did get as far as designing a rechargeable battery system for the sea version that's going to be tied to a little buoy with a tether down to the device that is 30 feet below or more, and it'll just ride up and down on the swells. And as it does so, the tether will be retracted, and then the weight of the vehicle will allow it to come back out, and it will charge the batteries dynamically using wave action.
Wow, that is very cool.
Well, it's the same process that that some people have come up with to generate energy. I also designed Gulfstream windmills that would they were just water windmills. Underwater that would sit in the Gulf Stream, move so slowly, would generate a lot of kilowatts, but they move so slowly that whales could swim right through them, submarines could go right through them, and never even hit them. Okay, because they move so slow. They're fabric veins, that kind of thing. So again, this is actually came about with when I wrote my book, because here I was writing a book on trying to extend the human race beyond planet Earth and talk about exoplanets, all right, and our place in the universe with this knowledge about exoplanets. And I hadn't been able to show anything for it, so I designed these windmills. I came up with a water system for generating energy that I thought would be cool, a design anyway. And then we did the rechargeable battery system for the UFOTOG 2 water units, which are all totally different from the land units. So it gave me a better feel for the science that would have to become mainstream at some point. If any of the things I was talking about in the book were to come true, I had to I had to make a design. I couldn't just say things flippantly and say, well, you should invent this. I had to think about it. I had to create it. I had to make a design that would actually be workable before I would actually write about it, because everybody can say something. To do it is a whole different thing.
Excellent.
That's
I think that the technology that you tapped there and the practicality is just fantastic. Okay, Webb telescope. Do you think it's going to have impacts, things like the Tabby star system that we were talking about earlier? What do you think is going to happen with the Webb telescope system?
James Webb Telescope is going to be a very interesting system, because when it's parked out at the point it's going to be, okay, it has a big shield on it, so it can basically block out the sun and prevent anything from affecting it from the sun, which is great. The James Webb Telescope is also going to have, it has as a primary instrument, it has these infrared telescopes on it, these infrared systems. Now, why infrared? Why would we care about looking only at the heat? Why not visual? Well, we have visual, and visual doesn't help us. We're not going to see from space, we're not going to see a planet around a star, okay, because a planet around the star is maybe 10 to 100 times smaller than the star. And we can't even see the star as a disk in the best telescope we have, depending on how. That said, the James Webb Telescope with the infrared systems will be able to see any excess infrared. That is, infrared that shouldn't be there unless it's there for a purpose. So let's stick with Tabby Star, if there's an alien civilization building a swarm of these energy collecting satellites around their star, and that's what's responsible for dimming the star, the James Webb Telescope should be able to point at Tabby Star, and it should be able to collect data to see if there is any excess infrared radiation or heat being emanated that we just can't see from Earth-based or Hubble observations, because, of course, Hubble doesn't have the same kind of infrared systems as James Webb would have. So this would give us the ability to actually make a final determination. And I just want a determination. I don't care if the answer is nope, it's all natural. Okay, that's fine. There's up to 400 billion stars in our galaxy. I'm sure we can go to another one. Thank you very much. Next.
So how far is this going to be out in space?
I'll have to look. I think it's going to be at one of the Lagrange points, one of those balance points of gravity.
Yeah.
So I'll have to figure out which Lagrange point, if that's where it's going to be. I haven't gotten that far yet with the James Webb Telescope. I just looked at all the instrumentation and said, "Ooh, I want that."
Absolutely.
I want that. I want to operate that.
So for the last bit here, and I'll grab any other questions that come into us from the chat room. I remind everybody you're listening to Task Force Griffin. Mark D'Antonio is the outstanding superstellar guest that is on with us tonight. Talk about streaming, and I've had a lot of people asking about what's going to happen when you stream tonight after this show, after you've been warmed up with this, and your greatness is at peaked because of your experience here in Task Force Griffin, and in specific, talking about the Northern Lights. A lot of questions, comments about that.
Well, we actually have, we started about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it is, when I actually added up the time. We started the stream that we call the Sky Tour live stream. And I wanted to be able to show people the deep sky and show them what's really up there, galaxies, clusters, things you can't see with your eye, things that only a telescope could see, but then things that a telescope even has difficulty seeing, but only seeable, visible with a very powerful, very sensitive camera. And I have all of those things. So I put it all together. We're doing a stream, Sky Tour live stream with Mark D'Antonio. That's a YouTube channel that we have. And then I hooked up with Keith Ickes and Skywatcher. And Keith and Paul, who run P&K Space Imaging, okay, these guys, they showcase the moon and the planets on clear nights. Skywatcher showcases wide, expansive sky for looking for meteorites and satellites. And I focus on deep sky objects. So in other words, if someone's interested in deep sky, they'll come to my stream, and it won't be taking anyone away from Keith or Skywatcher, okay? They'll come expressly to see deep sky objects. So what Skywatcher did, which to his credit is mostly his work, he created a website, which we now own, called astroimaginglive.com.
Yeah, and on earlier tonight. Excellent.
Were you? Yeah. And he devotes way more time than he should to it because he's just crazy that way. This is Skywatcher now, and he's good. He's really good.
When you say crazy, you don't have to define out of the three of us tonight who you're speaking to.
Okay.
It's all crazy good.
That's true.
Crazy good, but
yeah, it is. So we have all three of our streams up there, and you can click on one, go into it, and then say, oh, wow, I wonder what's going on with P&K. And then you can hit escape, and bam, you're right back at the website, okay, at astroimaginglive.com, and you can pick a different stream and go into it and say, oh, that was cool, participate in the chat room for a little while or an hour or whatever, then go back, hit escape, and bam, you're back at the main it's like a junction box, okay? Right. Astro Imaging Live is a junction box to any stream that caters to your particular want. And we love it. And it's something that is going to be a great clearinghouse. We love outreach. I'm a big outreach guy. I go all over the country teaching people.
You seem kind of introvert to me on this interview, so I'm not quite sure I can support the you're an outreach kind of guy.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to give you a benefit of the doubt.
Well,
I'm not quite.
I'm subduing myself a little for you. Yeah, well, I think it's great. So my stream is the youngest of the three. So my Sky Tour live stream with Mark D'Antonio, that is the YouTube channel. It's also the stream from astroimaginglive.com. And then we have Skywatchers and we have P&K Space Imaging. And I think that if you're interested and folks are interested, they can just come there, leave us questions and comments. And Skywatcher is going to fill out the rest of the contact information. We're going to talk about the best way to set that up. I don't mind fielding questions. I do it every day, day in, day out. I get literally about 100 emails a day, no lie. So what's another 20 or 50? You know, I mean, really. So I'm happy to do it if that's the case. And I'm sure Skywatcher's going, okay, Mark's elected. And oh, no. But we'll see. And this outreach is great.
All right. In particular, Northern Lights. Any comments on that? There was a lot of discussion earlier in the show tonight about the Northern Lights. Anything you want to add to that? Well, there was a lot of talk that we're going to see them down as far as Boston the last couple of nights. Unfortunately, the sky has not been very conducive to seeing it. I'm pretty far up north from Boston, and I didn't get a chance to really see much.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to go to Port Clyde, Maine every summer for the whole summer. So I used to spend my time on fishing boats, going out to sea, running trawler nets and radar for my cousin's boat, and then hauling traps when he was doing his lobster boat. And sometimes the sky would be absolutely stunning, and I would just sit there and dilly-dally, looking at the sky while getting slightly seasick, wishing I had a telescope that could be gyroscopically stabilized so I could actually see, you know, the stunning sights out there. But sometimes we'd also see some northern lights, and the northern lights being down as low as Maine represent a time where the sun is fairly energetic, because for the northern lights to make it out of what's called the auroral oval, and it's a standard auroral oval, and get out down below Hudson Bay and down into the southern, you know, mid latitudes in the United States or elsewhere in the world, means there's quite a bit of energy hitting the Earth. Now, usually that can happen if there's a coronal mass ejection, a CME event at the sun. If it hits us dead on, that can knock out our electrical grid. Because, you know, we humans are very, very good at planning. So we put all of our sensitive electrical items up in the air where anything can affect them, you know. So it's a little craziness that we just, you know, we're backing out of, hopefully. But so the northern lights actually, they need a fairly energetic sun. Now, I was on a solar watch today for an hour or two with P&K Space Imaging, as a matter of fact. And I was, you know, talking to folks about the sun and other things. And the sun is rather quiescent right now. There weren't really any prominences. There weren't really any flare events that we could see. But every now and then you'll get a reading that comes through from the solar monitoring centers that will tell you that you have about a day or so before we get hit with the storm, because we see the light from it. Obviously, the light gets here in 8 minutes from the sun. But the actual particles, the energy particles, the plasma, would take a couple days to get here because it doesn't travel at the speed of light. So it's slower, all right? Now, that stuff most times misses us, but sometimes it hits us. And I remember one time being at a drive-in movie watching The Dark Crystal, believe it or not.
Oh,
and all of a sudden,
how appropriate.
Right? And I looked up, and I was astonished that there were auroras over my head. And I don't mean subtle, faint ones. I'm in a parking lot where other cars are, where the screen is lit up, you know, and bright with a light going through the air between us and the projection building. And there's this aurora over my head that's so bright and so intense that I said, "Movie? What movie?" And I immediately got on the phone and I called the Auroral Network to report it, and then left the movie immediately, went home, got out the cameras and started photographing until I could, you know, photograph no more. And I was up all night doing the photography. So this is something that I did because it was, you know, a once-in-a-lifetime event to see this type of charged energy hitting the atmosphere. And by 2 a.m., the whole sky, horizon to horizon, was a pink bowl. It looked like a pink bowl. And all I could think of, Commander, was, "For the world is hollow and I have touched the sky," which is a Star Trek episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was exactly that. It looked like I could reach out and touch the edge of the earth, the edge of the sky. And so I thought that was really an appropriate story to finish out tonight here with you.
I think so, too. Mark, what can I say? As I tell many of my guests, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing everything you did for 2 hours. It's been absolutely fantastic and fun, education, frankness, everything. It's just wonderful. And like I said, the off-air stuff.
It's all fun.
Yeah, the off-air stuff was, God, it was just a riot. It was just a lot of fun, and it was just the perfect start. Obviously, we'll have to work on the folks that listen to the show. You only drove us to number 5 tonight. There was like 6 comments in the chat room. Hopefully the next time that you join us, or maybe they'll be a little bit more excited when they get on your YouTube tonight and they're tracking you. I urge everybody to keep track.
Maybe.
Mark's going to be with Jimmy Church tomorrow night. It's going to be another great evening. It's going to be great stuff that's going to be on the YouTube. And I'm going to close with this. Thank you once again to my guest, Mark D'Antonio, for joining us on Task Force Griffin. To Skywatcher, who pulled the strings and levers. Another Ed Wood pulled the strings. Another Ed Wood analogy. Reach out to him. One of my all-time fun movie directors and producers. I like to watch. Yeah, a lot of fun there. Did some crazy stuff. And thanks to the audience. You guys were great tonight. Definitely high engagement. And I really appreciate all the effort that you guys put into supporting the show and driving us hard to come up with it. We look forward to talking to you next week. Skywatcher, coming off the wing. You take her and take it to the next show. Mark, thanks very much.
All right. Commander Cobra show doesn't want to end. Hello to everybody that's watching on YouTube. We've got these clouds coming in. I hope it just moves the heck out of the way. It's only 12:38, so hopefully these clouds will get out. I'm going to look at the radar really quick on the phone and see what's going on. This is just not good right now. So let's go check. Okay, radar. That's not good. That is definitely not looking good right now. Well, we'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. There are showers to the west. We'll see. Anyway. Okay. Let's play another show here. I am going to pick a show that Jamie and I did. Now, I was thinking of changing it up a little bit. I'm trying to see which show to pick from here. The Aztec UFO. That was a pretty good show with Scott and Suzanne Ramsey and Dr. Frank Thayer. That actually was a good show. Everybody talks about Roswell, but there was also Aztec. There's also Gary Hesseltine. That was a decent show too. Let's see, who else can I pick out of here? I'm just looking at my list of shows here. Oh, we could do Jesse Marcel III. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to play this Harry Drew. Okay. I'll go with Aztec. And before I do that, let's do a quick shout out to everybody on YouTube. And I'm really hoping these clouds subside and get the heck out of the way. In the meantime, hello to Arnie and Daryl, Danny, Amanda, Jeffrey, Kathy, Maddie, Jello, Ted, and everyone else that's right now in the chat room. All right, so let's get with the show. And good night to X-Lady. I'm just waiting for this theme music to end.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. Thank you all for tuning in. The Jamie Aberkin Show on KGRA The Planet with my co-host Bill Forte. We are live. How you doing, Bill?
Good evening, Jamie, and good evening to all the listeners and everyone in the KGRAradio.com chat room, and happy holidays.
Indeed, 4th of July weekend. I'm not doing anything special except maybe shooting a few rounds off if I get lucky. It sounds like a war zone on the 4th of July New Year's here in the deep south in Florida.
Well, up here it gets a little dicey up here too. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoys their 4th tomorrow and has a great time with the family. Just be safe.
Yeah. My mom had a bad accident when I was a kid. We were leaving a state park, and then she had her window cracked. You know, back in the 80s, women wear a lot of hairspray. Well, a bottle rocket come in through the crack right into her hair.
Wow.
It was terrible. You know, being a little kid, I was just terrified.
Well, you know what? When I was younger, we used to go to the playground on a basketball court. And on one side, my friends would be, and me and my other friends would be on the side, and we'd shoot the bottle rockets at each other.
Yeah, we did the same with the Roman candles.
Yeah. I mean, don't do this at home. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Something I did when I was young. But, yeah, I mean, we got some really great guests coming up, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I also want to mention there's going to be another festival, UFO conference up here at the end of July 29th and 30th, the Kingston UFO conference. And Richard Dolan will be there, as well as, again, Jennifer Stein and Peter Robbins and some others. So if anybody's in the Kingston, New York area, it will be July 29th and 30th.
Quick website update. We're currently working on the website over the Jamie Aberkin Show. Once it's finished, I will put up the official URL, but right now you can see it by going to jhbroadcasting.info. It'll be done pretty soon. We're getting close, and we hope to provide, upcoming guest information, past show information, things like that there. So we're looking forward to that. Any skywatching this past week, Bill?
No, it's been pretty quiet. I've been pretty busy. I've had company here, and I'm going to have company again this week. So probably be by next week I'll start it up again because it's really been busy. I have company right now at the house, so I'm doing the show with you and having a great time. But, yeah, so we'll probably be doing it sometime this week. So
now let's talk about the show tonight. We have 3 guests, Scott and Suzanne Ramsey, as well as Dr. Frank Thayer. And we're going to be talking about the Aztec UFO incident. I'm going to read a little bit about their book, the first ever widely publicized report of a recording flying saucer. It was referred to as a hoax for decades, but the Ramseys and Dr. Frank Thayer reveal the exact spot where the craft landed and show how the 100-foot diameter saucer was moved to a secret laboratory and much more. And tonight, stay tuned towards the end of the show. You're going to hear a very special offer from our guests. If you want to get the book, they're going to throw in something extra. You can check that out at theaztecincident.com. So,
yeah, and this case deserves attention. I know there's a lot of people that are, that's speculative of it and has been saying that it's a hoax, but they have a lot of documentation, witness testimony. I mean, there is a lot of here that it shows to me that it is credible. So I think it's a really interesting case. We always hear about Roswell, but I think more emphasis should be taken on observing what happened in Aztec. And as we'll mention to them later on, it was mentioned in the X-Files.
Indeed. All right, well, with that, we're going to jump into the interview. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions during the show, post them in the chat room. We'll do our best to get them answered.
Okay, a little update on the weather. I just looked outside. There is wall-to-wall clouds coming. I don't even see any indication of skies clearing. I am going to check the radar one more time. Unfortunately, I may call this an early night. I'm not going to be here and have everyone think that we're going to see Perseids Meteor shower and all we see are clouds. So, unfortunately, that just happens to be the case. It's the weather. It's out of my control. So I'm just going to do another quick radar check. We still have tomorrow night and Saturday night. No, Saturday night they said it's going to be nice. That's what I saw. Last I saw it. I don't know if that's still the case. Let's see what's going on. The clouds are getting more dense. Oh, but it is. Look what's coming. Heavy cloud cover from the southwest. We're right on the periphery. Look at this. Look at the radar. It's actually raining in Pennsylvania. Showers. And it's sliding northeast. Well, there's showers on it right now. It's dicey. Mom, I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about Saturday.
I know, but for
I'm talking about right now.
showers, but not today or tomorrow.
It looks like most of the precipitation's going to move to my west, to the northeast. Let me just look at this. I'm not going to give up yet if I have any inkling that there's a chance. This radar takes forever to load. Yeah, we're in that. Now it's getting thicker in toward the west. I'm looking now, close, zooming in. There's clouds in Harrisburg all the way up to here, and it's all sliding in this direction. There's showers east of Pittsburgh right now. No, we're not going to get no rain here, but it's just the clouds. That's the issue. Now that I zoomed in, the radar has to reload. See, you can see by the opacity, you can see the density of the clouds. And they're definitely deepening. The clear skies are moving toward the northeast. There's a clear patch in Philadelphia. It's moving northeast, but I don't know if I'll catch that area. It's sliding northeast. Be a shame. Wow, this radar is really having its issues right now. It's going crazy. Let me try a different one. Let's go to AccuWeather. Radar and maps, satellite imagery. Let's zoom in. Let's zoom in some more. Oh yeah. Oh, that's pathetic. I'm right at the northern fringe. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's do that again. Oh yeah, but even if I stay streaming. We may get a slight break, but then there's more clouds to the west, and they're deep. Well, I'll just give it a little bit more and check the radar. It's not looking good, though. Let's see what the forecast is. Tomorrow night, mostly cloudy with showers. So tomorrow definitely does not look good. Let's see Saturday. Patchy clouds and humid. Well, I'll take patchy clouds. That's not too bad. So, yep, it's not looking too good right now. It's so unfortunate. Look at those clear skies to the north. It's blue skies over there. So I'm just going to give it a little time. It's still early. It's only 12:53. Maybe this will slide off and we'll get lucky. Okay. Yeah, the clouds do have a little greenish tint to them. The moon, as you can see, is really bright. Now, like I said, if you look to the bottom of the screen, that's north. And there is a break there. But the problem is the clouds are moving from the southwest. So that was the clear skies we just had a bit earlier. And these clouds are moving in from the southwest. And on the radar, it's really dense. And there's no break. This stretches all the way throughout Pennsylvania. So rather than waste everyone's time, I may call it soon. Let me just check the radar one more time. I hate that they don't update the radar, the satellite imagery, as they do precipitation. That really is annoying. You would think by now you'd get the latest satellite imagery. Okay. Enhanced. Let's zoom in one more time. Okay, this radar was last updated at, wow, that's pathetic, 12:30. It's every 15 minutes. There is a slight opening there. It's not much of an opening, but there is a little gap. Right now, Scranton, Pennsylvania is socked in with clouds, and that is moving my direction. And it's just a matter of time that this fills in. I would say right where 3 a.m., I'll be completely covered in clouds. And the best time is from 3 to, say, sunrise. So I am not optimistic whatsoever on what I'm looking at in radar right now. So with that, I'm just going to hold out for a few more minutes and see The radar doesn't lie. That's for sure. And as you can see, we can't see nothing on that sky. So I think I'm going to kill the stream. I know it's unfortunate, but it figures. We'll try again tomorrow night. If the weather forecast by some chance changes, because they're predicting showers tomorrow night, but maybe it'll clear up by 1 a.m. and I'll stream then, because I got to produce till midnight anyway, so I'll be up. So maybe these showers will move out by the wee hours for the peak, and then I'll try again Saturday night into Sunday morning. But right now, these skies are not looking good. I'm just waiting to see this top area of sky that I'm looking at. On my on the real time here, there's a 30-second delay average on YouTube. I'm watching it in real time. And if you remember just a few minutes ago, I mentioned about the clear skies to the bottom of the screen, which is north. Look how quickly that filled in. Just like I indicated, the clouds are moving from the southwest to the northeast. So obviously these clouds are moving and filling in. So again, just by the radar indication of what the radar is doing, it's not looking good. So rather, like I said, waste anyone's time, I think I'm going to call it an early night, get some rest for tomorrow, and we'll give it another shot. So I just want to thank everybody that's been watching on YouTube. It figures that I've had clear skies all week, and it clouds up now. All right, so I'm going to say a quick goodnight to everybody else that's in YouTube chat. I want to say goodnight to Bear and hello to Bear. CND Boy in Canada. Craze Gaming. Amanda Duplicat. Jeffrey LaDonna. Maddie, Jello, Painted Wolf, Sarah, Ted Bronson, Tony the Night Owl, and Weird Guy. And again, I apologize, but it's nothing that I can control. I wish we had a harp device right about now and change the weather. Oh, man. Anyway, everyone, have a great night. Be well, be safe, be blessed, and we'll give it another shot tomorrow. Tomorrow night into Saturday is the peak. So, like I said, crossing fingers, maybe this system that's actually moving in now, it might be actually moving in. This actually might be a good thing. And I'm just going to do the radar one more time to look at a more of a national picture. Because if this system is moving through now, that's actually good. Let it do its thing right now. I'd rather it move in, get out, and maybe the timing for tomorrow night will be a little bit better here. So I'm going to check the radar one more time to see what the systems look like. Because I study meteorology. I was actually going to be a weatherman at one time. I'm good at reading lows and highs and the jet stream, etc. Right, zoom out to nation. Okay, let's put this in motion. Let's see what the jet stream is doing here. Oh, there's a low pressure spinning by Chicago. There's rotation there. That's where a lot of these clouds are coming from. Let me zoom in. Yep. It's spinning itself. But it's drying off to the west. If that low pressure that's right now, I'm going to zoom in. It looks like it's just moving out of Chicago. It's actually going into Canada. This low pressure system. It's spinning and rotating, and it looks like it's moving northeast. Let me zoom out. And that's what's going to cause all the storms and showers for tomorrow. this can push out quickly. Zoom out to nation. Let's see what's behind it. Yeah, there is dry air behind it. We just might get lucky if this moves out quick enough. Okay, so again, I'm going to do one more quick, because it's after 1. Maybe they'll do the 1 o'clock update. I'm going to refresh. I doubt it, but we'll give it a shot. I'm going to zoom into my area one last time. Yeah, I'm getting these clouds. Let's zoom out to region. Let's go a little lower. So close yet so far. Anyway, I'm going to call it. And I just want to, again, say goodnight to everybody that's been watching. And we'll try again tomorrow night. So till then, be well, be blessed, be safe. Have a great night, everybody. And we'll give it a shot again tomorrow night. Till then, good night.